In my past life, I never married so I could care for my brother. This time around, we were both reborn together. His first act upon rebirth was to send me away and bring home his destined fake heiress. He abandoned me on the streets while I was still in swaddling clothes. Don't blame me for being heartless. You're the one who got Serafina killed. The day I was born, the South was shrouded in an unending drizzle. Ethan took 3 days off. He rushed back to his hometown in his school uniform. All in a frantic hurry, no one knew, that elementary school student with ramrod-straight posture and steady gaze. Within his soul lay memories spanning 2 eras. He had just been reborn, returning with a heart full of regrets from his previous life. He didn't even glance at me, his own sister. Instead, he secretly bribed the delivery nurse to present the accidentally swapped child from the previous life to our parents as if it were legitimate. He carried me out of the hospital, then stuffed me into a shabby cardboard box. I rode the bus with him all the way to the outskirts of the city, and that girl in swaddling clothes, who cried even louder than I did, bearing the so-called bloodline of Serafina's family, she would later become the little sister everyone cherished. What Ethan regretted most in his previous life, decades of hardship wore away the rest of his life, causing him to miss the girl who became an aviation doctor for him, and I, his own sister, returned home at 18. She never married, willingly teaching herself rehabilitation medicine for his sake. She lifted his paralyzed body from the wheelchair, yet the one who occupies his heart is the adopted daughter I once renounced. The Serafina family of Guangdong were hailed as martyrs in their past life, honored by the state. Their story was featured in 3 consecutive military propaganda reports. This time, he's determined to rewrite their destiny, at all costs. Lying in my swaddling clothes, I quietly opened my eyes. In this life, I've been reborn once again. In my previous life, I was switched at the hospital with the fake heiress. She became the young lady of Serafina's family. Meanwhile, I was placed with an ordinary working-class family. At the age of 3, a car accident left me completely without support. I was sent to an orphanage. From then on, she lived over a decade in constant fear and apprehension. Meanwhile, the imposter was raised in Serafina's family, living in luxury and being pampered. She became Serafina. She was the cherished jewel in the eyes of Serafina's family, the only little sister in her brother's eyes. She had the privilege of attending school to learn to read, and even took lessons in dance and piano. She could study abroad and was adored by everyone. Meanwhile, I wasn't brought back to Serafina's family until I was 18, that year. I was still wearing the worn cloth shoes and coarse cotton dress issued by the orphanage. I walked through the gate carrying a worn-out leather suitcase. I saw my brother standing in the courtyard. He stood tall and straight in his military uniform, silhouetted against the light, but he frowned at me and said, "So you're Penelope, why do you seem so provincial?" My brother was a pilot groomed through a national key training program. Serafina became an outstanding aviation medical officer. In the photo, they stood shoulder to shoulder, their smiles radiant, until that year, when I visited my family at the military base. The plane crashed, and both my brother and Serafina were trapped under the wing, waiting for rescue. The doctor urgently asked me to choose. "I'm sorry, but we can only save one of them first." After a moment of silence, I said, "Save my brother." Everyone blamed me for causing the death of the fake heiress, but I have no regrets. I began studying rehabilitation on my own, caring for him day and night. Over 10 years, I helped my brother rise from his wheelchair and reclaim his dignity. I never married, devoting my life to caring for my brother into his twilight years. As my brother lay dying, his pale hand covered my fingertips. His voice was faint, yet every word pierced my heart. "Penelope, I wish you had saved Serafina instead." 02. I stood frozen in place. It felt like being struck by a 1,000-pound boulder. Even at the very end, not once did he utter a word of gratitude toward me. He carried the box a long way. We drove from the hospital through the old town. We arrived at the most remote part of the city, East Street. Finally, at the entrance of a dilapidated alley overgrown with weeds, he crouched down, his face turned pale and his lips pressed tightly together as he looked at me in the box. "Penelope," he whispered, his voice trembling as his hands shook, "don't blame your brother. Serafina died so tragically. In her past life, she died because of you. I don't blame you, but she really deserved to live a carefree life." He placed me in the shadows at the mouth of the alley. With tiny hands, she tucked the swaddling clothes around me. "Someone will surely pass by here. Just live as an ordinary person in this lifetime." He stood up, his eyes slightly reddened, but stubbornly turned his face away. "Penelope, I only ask one thing, never appear before me again in this life." Without looking back, my consciousness had already awoken after rebirth, yet I remained powerless to speak. I lay there in the shadows, watching that receding figure fade into the distance. My heart grew cold, my eyes fluttered open again. The sky was as gray as tattered cloth, and the wind rustled the leaves at the alley's entrance. He had long since disappeared into the distance. I had just been born, and my body was terribly frail, too weak to even cry. Only muffled sobs escaped my throat. Rain soaked through the swaddling clothes. A fever set in, burning until my vision went white. The faint sound of wild dogs tearing at something reached my ears, like claws ripping through my heart. I couldn't move. All I could do was gaze up at this unfamiliar sky, memories of my past life. I devoted my entire life to studying medicine, learned rehabilitation, and cared for my brother for 40 years, yet in the end, all I got was, "I wish you had saved Serafina instead." The first thing he did after being reborn was to drive me out of Serafina's family. I closed my eyes, the scent of damp earth and rain filling my nostrils. Consciousness slowly faded away. Then, a gentle female voice spoke up. "What's that sound? Is it a kitten?" Another deep voice followed, with a hint of playful teasing. "Then let's take it home. Aren't you the one who loves kittens most?" In the darkness, a faint glimmer began to emerge. It was the light of rain hitting street lamps. The hazy glow of distant car headlights, and in my dazed consciousness, it became the first tangible hope I could grasp. I saw an umbrella, unfurled against the wind and rain. Beneath it was a face of exquisite beauty. Her hair, damp from the rain, clung to her cheeks. The moment her eyes met mine, her gaze was gentle yet carried a hint of urgency. "Spencer, drive to the hospital now. It's a child." Her voice trembled, words tumbling out in a rush. Clearly terrified beyond measure, the next instant, she gently lifted me out of the box. My swaddling clothes were soaked through, so she took off her coat and wrapped me in it. She drew me completely into her embrace. She carried a lovely scent about her. It was like osmanthus blended with herbal notes. So comforting it brought tears to my eyes. I leaned against her chest, babbling incoherently. Breathing hot puffs of air, my consciousness drifted in and out. She held me tight and muttered curses under her breath. "Damn it, who'd have thought a business trip would land me in this mess? She's burning up with fever, her lips have turned blue." The man's voice came from the side, slightly hoarse. "I'll get the car, we can't afford to wait on this." "So that's how it is," she whispered soothingly. "Don't be scared, sweetheart. Auntie will take you to see the doctor." The high fever from that night finally broke. I lay in the stark white hospital bed. When I opened my eyes, Lillian was dozing off by the bedside. Her fingertips still rested on my hand. I twitched my fingers, and she woke up instantly. First, she froze in surprise, then her eyes welled up with tears. "You're awake. You're one tough cookie, sweetheart. The doctor said my temperature is stable and my vital signs are normal." They stood by the window talking in hushed tones. "Take her away," Lillian said firmly. "I've been to the orphanage before. They don't always treat the children well. She's too young. Sending her there is out of the question." Spencer frowned. "But our lifestyle, taking care of a child won't disrupt our lives." Spencer paused briefly before nodding. "All right, let's head back to start the formal procedures." A black sedan with Beijing license plates drove from the ancient alleys of the southern coast all the way back to the northern military compound. I was officially adopted and given the name Chloe, a name born from my father's surname and my mother's hometown. She chose this name seeing the gentleness in my eyes. "Annie, Shani, may you grow up in peace and tranquility." From that moment, I began a new life. Spencer's father is a senior official in Beijing's military political institutions, hailing from a family of scholars. He has maintained an esteemed career in government service. He is a prominent and well-respected figure in Beijing's social circles. His mother is Lillian, a young generation researcher at the Chinese Academy of Sciences, a gifted woman with a remarkably gentle disposition. He was gone, adores cats and flowers, and has a natural talent for caring for others. They are newlyweds. After adopting me, they never planned to have biological children of their own. "Children are gifts from heaven," my mother would say. "We owe her a brand new life." They never let me want for anything, from baby formula to learning my ABCs, from childhood illnesses to losing baby teeth, from my first high fever to the first award I won for my handwriting. They were right there with me through every single step, and to me, they became my entire world. For over a dozen years slipped by in the blink of an eye, time fleeting like a white steed's shadow across a crevice. The rain poured down in torrents. From an abandoned infant, I grew into a young woman with clear, bright eyes and a composed, steady demeanor. It all feels like waking from a long, profound dream. When I awoke, the wind had long since shifted. On the day I graduated from Military Academy in 1986, I wrote just one sentence, requesting assignment to the 1st Guangdong Air Force Squadron as a political officer. Everyone was taken aback. Dad even wondered if I'd filled out the form wrong. "Chloe, you've always had good grades and a steady temperament. You could get an office job anywhere. Why do you have to go so far away?" I smiled and said, "Dad, there's just something I need to do, something unfinished." No one knew that base down south, that was the turning point in my past life, where destiny took a complete U-turn. It was also where everything came full circle. Jacob, the boy from our compound, coincidentally, he'd also signed up for the pilot exam. The target is also the 1st Squadron. When he heard about it, he chased after me teasingly. Chloe, you didn't join just because of me, did you? I gave him a cool glance. Don't flatter yourself. He laughs with such carefree abandon, sticking to me like glue every single day. On the day of the military competition, he insisted on dragging me along. No way, you have to come with me and cheer me on. I really didn't want to go, but in the end, I couldn't say no to him, and so, under the scorching sun, I stood by the reviewing stand. In my ears echoed the instructor's commands, applause, and roaring cheers. Just as I took a sip of water, my gaze unexpectedly met two familiar figures in the crowd, Ethan, Serafina, my brother, and the one in the flight paramedic uniform with a serene smile, the imposter heiress. My fingers tightened slightly, my palms turning ice cold. This fated reunion, this lifetime, came much sooner than I had ever imagined. My brother's gaze cut through the crowd, and he stood frozen for what felt like an eternity. In an instant, it was as if I had been transported back to that day in my past life. The sun blazed white, and the wind rustled the gardenia blossoms by the courtyard. Everything was as tranquil as it had been before the incident, yet beneath the surface, turbulent currents were already stirring. Serafina prepared a feast to celebrate her brother's successful completion of flight training. She wore a white dress, her face radiant with a warm smile. She seemed like the gentlest soul in the world. That day I happened to see something by accident. She was in the back kitchen, putting something into my brother's cup. I quietly swapped that cup of water and hid the evidence. Then I took the leftover liquid to get it tested. My heart was pounding like a drum when the test results came back. The medication can cause temporary confusion and impair rational thinking. I went straight to her and confronted her directly. Why did you drug my brother? Unhurried, she smoothed her skirt and looked down, her smile still gentle. Don't get me wrong, I just feel like some things should move a little faster. 5. You don't need to bother. Big brother has always protected you and listened to everything you say. She paused briefly, her eyes shifting slightly, and spoke in a low voice. But there are always people who stand in my way. Her tone was almost too soft when she said it, yet it sent chills down my spine. Suddenly, something dawned on me. Before our parents passed away, they weren't particularly fond of Serafina. At one family gathering, my mother even said in front of everyone, Serafina, you and Ethan are both grown up now. There should be boundaries between men and women. He'll marry and have children someday, and you'll marry someone else too. You can't keep clinging to Ethan like this. Not long after that, our parents died young from an unexpected illness. It's not like I never had my doubts, but I couldn't produce any evidence, nor convince anyone, especially my brother. I tried to talk some sense into him, but he wouldn't listen. I demanded that he kick her out, and he said in a low voice, Penelope, don't go too far. I understand you don't like her, but this is Serafina. We grew up together. How could she possibly harm anyone? In any case, I won't make her leave. He didn't believe it, not even if she drugged him. Even though our parents died under suspicious circumstances, he still wouldn't believe it. He always thinks I'm being unreasonable and letting jealousy get the better of me. In her previous life, after their parents passed away, Serafina confessed her feelings to her brother and was rejected. Shortly after, the fighter jet malfunctioned during landing. Its wings snapped off, and it burst into flames upon impact. Inside the cockpit, Ethan was severely injured and lost consciousness. Serafina, the flight surgeon on board, was trapped under the wreckage but remained fully conscious. Upon hearing the news, I immediately boarded the military vehicle. The doctor informed me, Miss, we can only save one. Serafina gritted her teeth and shouted, Save me. I can't hold on much longer. Help me first. I grabbed the doctor's arm and pleaded urgently. Save my brother first. He's a pilot. He's still alive. I'm begging you. Help him now. The doctor hesitated for a moment, then turned and started calling for assistance, stretcher, oxygen, ECG monitor. Now, a pilot's life always comes first, no matter what. This is the most fundamental medical protocol, and it's just common sense. Even if it had been me and my brother in that situation that day, I wouldn't hesitate for a second to let the doctor save him first. My brother was being loaded into the ambulance, but I was frozen in place, terrified by Serafina's eyes staring from beneath the wreckage of the cabin. It was a gaze filled with a chilling mix of despair and madness, like someone whose wishes will never be granted. Finally resolved to drag everything into the abyss, the plane exploded. Serafina perished in that accident. I became the one person in that accident who was deemed unforgivable. The day I woke from the coma, for the first time, I saw hatred in my brother's eyes when he looked at me. 6. Penelope, he said. If it weren't for you, Serafina would still be alive. For 50 years, he kept turning those words over in his mind. It wasn't until his final moments that he told me, I wish you had saved her instead. In this life, everything starts anew. Someone's been quietly asking about me at Flight Unit 001's base. It's Ethan. He's standing by the training field, watching me run drills over and over. His gaze steady and focused. He casually pulled Jacob aside as if by accident, his tone nonchalant. Is that girl your partner? Jacob chuckled. Oh, you mean Chloe, she's the new political officer. We both came from the military compound in Beijing. What's the name? He asked again, murmuring the name under his breath, as if trying to dredge up some faint trace from memory. Chloe. Later on, he froze, a flicker of something unreadable passing through his eyes. Serafina, standing beside him, had already taken in the whole scene. She averted her gaze, her smile fading. Bro, don't tell me. You've got a thing for her. Ethan glanced back and said casually, just a new junior staff member, nothing worth mentioning, yet his tone carried a hint of curiosity and probing. In the following days, he started appearing around me frequently, the training ground, the cafeteria, the political education classroom. He even pretended to run into me after the meeting, whispering, Chloe, what a coincidence. I gave a slight nod, polite yet distant. Pilot Ethan. He froze for a moment. Not brother. Not Ethan G, just a cold, formal address. I pretended not to recognize him on purpose, but he only grew more persistent. He kept dropping hints from time to time. Have you ever lived in the South before? You look somewhat familiar. I've spent my whole life in the capital until now, I said with a gentle smile. This is my first time traveling south. That day, in every conversation, I carefully maintained proper boundaries and knew exactly when to engage or withdraw. This isn't about revenge. I just refused to walk that worn path again. This time, I won't acknowledge him. Serafina had already noticed something off about him. She came to talk with me, her tone diplomatic yet her words razor-sharp. Comrade Chloe, military regulations strictly separate men and women. Stay away from my brother. I nodded with a smile. You should be saying that to your brother. Ironically, it was her brother who kept trying to get close to me. Serafina misunderstood her brother's intentions toward me and began targeting me through both overt and covert means. The documents for the political work meeting were secretly swapped out. On the day of the hygiene inspection, my bed was deliberately messed up. These tactics were clumsy and amateurish, yet they were enough for her to paint me as incompetent in front of everyone. I took on every challenge with a cold, observant eye. In my past life, I was completely oblivious. Thinking she was gentle and considerate, I yielded to her at every turn, only to become the butt of everyone's jokes. But this time, I'm no longer that naive girl who could be manipulated at will. If she dares to harm me, I'll make sure she gets what she deserves. That day before the meeting, I made an extra copy of the documents and stored it in the archives, waiting for her to make the switch. The instructor, furious, demanded an explanation. I simply retrieved the original from the filing cabinet. Calmly, I replied, since someone was planning to swap them out. Of course I kept a backup. I was prepared for that hygiene inspection and had set up surveillance, not electronic surveillance. It was the veteran cadre writing the report, quietly taking notes. He noticed my bedding looked like someone had rummaged through it. With a sharp glance, he grabbed his notepad and wrote suspected malicious tampering. That evening, at the Political Work Department's public review meeting, the name of the saboteur was announced in the meeting briefing, Serafina, for repeatedly provoking fellow soldiers, undermining unit cohesion. Flight training is suspended pending submission of a written self-criticism. She shot me a look of disbelief. I maintained a composed expression as I closed the documents in my hands. He rose to his feet and declared, military discipline applies to everyone equally. You're a flight surgeon, not part of some privileged class. My words left the entire conference room in stunned silence. The Spencer family stands behind me. It's Spencer from the Military District Command, and Lillian from the Academy of Sciences. Teach her a lesson without making a scene. It's a warning. If she doesn't learn her lesson, I have plenty more tricks up my sleeve. I've been assigned to a month-long training program with the Beijing Corps. I just settled into my dorm when the front desk notified me of a visitor. It was Ethan who had come to see me. His flight suit was impeccably pressed and sharply creased. He walked in with a furrowed brow and got straight to the point. Chloe, have you been making unwanted advances towards Serafina? I looked up at him, my face expressionless but with a hint of mockery in my eyes. She says you've been targeting her at every turn, accusing her behind her back of stealing materials, vandalizing the dorm, and now publicly humiliating her in the meeting. He demanded in an accusatory tone, don't you owe her an explanation? In this life, he's the spitting image of his former self. 7. He just barged in to confront me based solely on her side of the story, never once bothering to ask if I'm willing. I never stopped to question whether it was true or not. He still thought of me as that timid, subservient little girl. I stood up, my back ramrod straight, and asked in a cold voice, Pilot Ethan, in what capacity are you speaking to me? As my superior, as family, or as Serafina's beloved? He froze, his expression momentarily blank. She's my sister. What nonsense are you talking? I continued to laugh. If you want to stand up for her, fine. But first figure out what I've done and whether it's worth your defense. I had backup copies ready when the meeting documents got swapped. When my bunk was searched, I reported it to the political department. It's all on record. You say I embarrassed her, but our unit operates by rules, not personal favors. I stared back at him, my tone turning colder. Ethan, you need to understand something. Not everyone is going to cater to you like they used to. He froze for a moment. I sneered. Your current status with her is truly beneath my notice. If you hadn't repeatedly provoked me, I wouldn't have bothered to intervene. His face turned absolutely livid. The wind was howling at the entrance, so I turned back inside, leaving behind only these words. If you keep defending her, I'll consider you birds of a feather. Don't blame me for turning hostile just because you're close with Jacob. The door slammed shut, plunging the entire corridor into silence. Let him sober up. In this lifetime, we'll see who truly commands respect. Word of Ethan confronting me had reached Jacob by the next day. During lunch break, he stormed into my office, fuming. Chloe, level with me. Is someone giving you a hard time in the military? I kept reviewing documents with my head down. No, I said without looking up. You don't have to tell me. I already know. I heard you made someone cry at the political meeting. And then those two actually had the nerve to turn the tables and accuse you of throwing your weight around. I raised an eyebrow. Where did you hear that? None of your business where I heard it. He waved his hand dismissively. Look, I'm putting it straight. You're the only girl who grew up in our military compound, the little sister we roughnecks have been protecting since we were kids. How could we let two outsiders push you around? I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Jacob. I'm not some delicate porcelain doll. You're not some porcelain doll, but you are our little sister. He spoke with such self-righteous conviction, his eyes practically bulging out of his head. Have you forgotten who always charged in first during our childhood brawls? You even wrote about it in your essays. All the older boys from our compound were reckless, but when it came to fights, we always had each other's backs. You've only been in the army for a few days and you're already letting people walk all over you. Fine then, so none of us matter to you. Is that it? With that, he gestured, and 3 or 4 familiar faces stepped in from the back. They were all pilots, engineers, and logistics officers from the compound. Chloe, a guy from the engineering section, handed me a bottle of soda. Don't be scared. Jacob told us everything. Just say the word, and our whole crew will have your back. I chuckled. Thanks, guys. It's not that I'm scared, I said calmly. I just don't think it's necessary. But since you're here, it's fine. Let Ethan and the others know I'm not alone in this. Jacob slammed his hand on the table. Exactly. They need to know. You've got the entire military compound backing you up. Before the afternoon training session began, a line of people stood at the entrance to the logistics compound of the flight base. Some wore flight suits. Others were in standard officer uniforms. There were soldiers in work uniforms, even bespectacled research personnel. They were all the big brothers I'd grown up with in the military compound. Leading them, of course, was Jacob. He stood with one hand on his hip, taking a bite of the ice pop he held in the other, then grinned. Heard someone thinks our little sister is an easy target. A political officer nearby recognized him. You're from the Sun family, the Suns, the Wangs. The base, even Liu Yiming, who transferred from our old artillery unit, is here. He turned to point out each person. Why don't you tell them what kind of status our Chloe holds in this compound? Liu Yiming stepped forward, adjusted his glasses, and remarked calmly, we've watched her grow up since she was little. She could recite military songs at 5, and by 7 she was already briefing Spencer on reporting procedures. If anyone dares mess with her, we'll draft a joint petition overnight and send it straight up the chain. It's not about throwing our weight around, it's that we have the means to protect our own. Jacob chimed in. Exactly. Chloe's like a little sister to us. Someone from the outside wants to give her trouble. Fine. They'll have to get through us first. With all the commotion they stirred up, Ethan realized he'd crossed a line, dragging a reluctant Serafina along. She made her apologize to me face to face. Word got out. And soon the entire airbase knew. Chloe, the only daughter raised in the Beijing military compound, was the cherished treasure of all the older brothers from the veterans' families. No one dared to gossip anymore. No one dared to talk behind my back. Even those middle-aged female clerks in the political department who usually can't stand me are now greeting me with smiles. We don't say it out loud, but we all know what's going on. The people behind me are willing to go all out for my sake. What's more important is, I've got the guts to stand my ground too. It's my birthday, 8. Mom flew all the way from abroad just to personally arrange the restaurant and order the cake. She kept asking me over and over who was coming. I told her not to go overboard, but she was bustling about as if she were planning a wedding, practically ready to book out the entire hotel. All the guys from the compound showed up. Jacob quipped, with this kind of turnout, I wonder if it'll be this lively when our Chloe gets married someday. Right as the dinner started, I suddenly mentioned, Dad, I heard Serafina's birthday is today too, same as mine. In the private room next door, my father, a government official, nodded and said, that's right. I took a slow sip of tea and said, then let's invite her and Ethan to join us, it'll make things more festive. Jacob frowned, are you crazy? Why invite them? This birthday is supposed to be fun, not a headache, I smiled, setting down my teacup. They wouldn't dare mess with me now, would they? He nodded. Damn right. With us around, nobody would dare lay a finger on you. 10 minutes later, Ethan and Serafina arrived. The moment they stepped in, they found themselves face to face with dozens of tall, straight-backed military officers, chairs stretched from the table all the way to the corners. Everyone was smiling, but no one truly welcomed them. Serafina, in her snow-white dress, looked like a young artsy woman who had accidentally wandered into a military camp. Ethan glanced at me, his eyes filled with complex emotions, probably remembering this day from a past life. I celebrated my birthday with Serafina. All the guests surrounded her, and no one offered me a single word of blessing. There wasn't even my name on the cake. I sat in the corner. Like a shadow that could easily be overlooked, I stood in the spotlight. All eyes were on the star of the show. Ethan and Serafina carefully sat down together. The dishes arrived one after another. My mother gently placed food in my bowl. This is the sweet and sour pork you loved most as a child. Do you remember? I nodded, and she added with a smile. I chose coconut milk pudding for dessert, and made sure to add the red beans you like. Looking down, I saw a bowl of mango sago being slid toward me. I turned my head to see Ethan's inquisitive smile. He said softly, "The mango flavor is delicious too. Want a taste?" Jacob slammed his chopsticks down with a sharp clack. "She's allergic to mangoes. One bite could send her to the hospital. Are you doing this on purpose?" The atmosphere froze. Ethan's face turned pale. He was deliberately testing me. My mother patted my hand and said, "My apologies. I could have sworn I specifically asked the kitchen to leave out the mango. Chloe has a severe mango allergy, not common knowledge, so no blame here for being unaware." I shook my head. Father smoothly defused the situation, gesturing to the waiter. "Please take this mango dish away." "Oh, don't," I chuckled. "Let Serafina have it. Mangoes are her favorite." Ethan froze in place. I turned to him with a smile, my lips curving and eyes crinkling. Ethan, his shoulders gave a slight jolt. My smile grew even sweeter. "My family and friends all remember what I like to eat and what I can't. I hope you won't knowingly make the same mistake again." His face turned pale, as if he'd been slapped hard across the cheek, but I just held the coconut milk pudding, lowered my head with a smile, and took a slow bite. It was refreshingly sweet with a hint of coolness. This is my life, my favorite scent. I lowered my head, and a memory suddenly surfaced in my mind. That year, I was 19, my parents went back to the countryside to take care of my sick grandmother. Serafina hastily threw a birthday party at home. It was also my birthday that day. I said I couldn't attend the party because I'm allergic to mangoes. Ethan nudged me forward with a chuckle. "Serafina adores mango cake. The fact that she gave you the first slice means she likes you. Do me a solid. Just one bite won't hurt, right?" I hesitated. He patted my shoulder gently. "Don't spoil the mood for everyone." I took a bite. 10 minutes later, I rushed to the bathroom, vomiting and having diarrhea. My stomach churning violently. I called out to them, saying I felt awful. They didn't hear me. Serafina held Ethan's hand, laughing as she continued cutting the cake. "Maybe big sister's feeling a bit shy," she cooed. She immediately locked the bathroom door and hung the occupied sign. I was unconsciously scratching my neck and face. The pain made my head spin. Serafina said to the guests outside, "Oh, please don't mind my sister hogging the bathroom. If anyone needs to use the restroom, there's one on the second floor. Sorry for the inconvenience." Ethan stood at the door and said coldly, "Stop acting like a child. So what if we didn't get her a gift? If she doesn't come out now, she might as well stay in there." When I heard that, my mind went blank with a ringing sound. Yes, today is my birthday too, but no one remembered. They only remembered Serafina. The cake, flowers, candlelight, and guests all were arranged by my brother for her. I sat by the toilet, my mind a complete blank. The fever had drained me of all strength, leaving me too weak to even stand. In my dazed state, I gradually noticed the outside noises fading into silence. I knocked on the door and called out to my brother, "Brother, could you take me to the hospital?" Who was it that burst in at that moment? All I remember is that he was wearing a pilot's uniform, 09, with a distinct Beijing accent. He crouched down to pick me up, looking somewhat puzzled. He had 2 little canine teeth, and his voice was clear and gentle. Whose kid is this? How'd you get all swollen up like a pig's head? Holy shit, how did someone end up burned this badly? Don't be scared. I'm not a bad person. I'm taking you to the hospital right now. Kid, hang in there. What did he say his name was again? I think it was Jacob. The memory fades. I snapped back to reality and looked up. Across from me, Jacob was fighting his brothers over ice cream, who ordered the mung bean flavor. No way. Everyone remember, Chloe's favorite is red bean with milk foam cap. He spoke with unshakable conviction, as if the whole world revolved around it. No one gets to forget what I eat. I lowered my head with a quiet chuckle. In my past life, I nearly died trapped in a bathroom due to a mango allergy. In this life, I'm held high and cherished in someone's hands, and that person, from past to present, never changed. Serafina's parents came to Beijing from Guangdong specifically to celebrate her birthday. When I found out, I told Jacob, I can't be there myself. Do me a favor and take Serafina's parents for a full medical checkup. Jacob looked puzzled and asked, a checkup? What for? It's a matter of life and death. When the test results came in, the doctor looked grim and quietly called me into his office. They've been exposed to a chronic neurotoxin over an extended period. Fortunately, the dosage was low, and with prompt intervention, the effects can still be reversed. I nodded. I'd appreciate your discretion in this matter. That night, I dispatched agents to drive overnight and infiltrate Serafina's family residence in Guangdong. A pill bottle with its label torn off was discovered under Serafina's bed. Our investigation later traced her purchase of prohibited substances. The perpetrators also administered poison to Serafina's parents through various means. I shoved all the evidence at Ethan. She's the one you trust most, isn't she? Take a look at this. He held the report in his hands. His face shifted from disbelief to anger, then paled. He went to Serafina for confirmation. She sobbed, brother. It's because I have feelings for you. Ethan recoiled as if struck by lightning, stumbling backwards step by step. Do you realize what you're saying? I've always thought of you as a sister. But she shook her head. We're not blood related. I've known since childhood I wasn't truly part of Serafina's family. She bit her lip, her eyes blazing with a feral intensity. Your mother found out. She told me to stop yearning for you. But I refuse. I don't want anyone else. I want to remove every obstacle standing between us, even our parents. Ethan's voice trembled. They're the ones trying to marry me off to someone else. They're the ones keeping me from you. I had no other choice. Her words were incoherent. She had completely descended into the abyss of paranoia. In that moment, her brother finally understood. The little sister he had always thought was obedient, sensible, and gentle had madness hidden deep within her bones. It's done. I'm planning to leave Guangdong. I'll work late tonight to fill out the transfer application in the office. Ethan pushed the door open, stumbled in, and collapsed to his knees with a dull thud, head hanging low. Penelope, it's my fault. I'm the one who got Mom and Dad killed. I just kept making one mistake after another. I sat facing him, looking down from my superior position. You've got the wrong person. He looked up, voice choked with emotion. I recognized you. I know you're Penelope. You love red beans. You have a small mole behind your ear. You tilt your head when writing with your right hand, and you'd burst into tears whenever you made a mistake writing as a child. I remember everything. My face remained completely expressionless. So what if you remember? My voice turned icy. Does remembering undo what you did, abandoning me at the alleyway, leaving me burning with fever and clinging to life? He was trembling all over. I leaned down, looked him straight in the eye, and said slowly and deliberately, Ethan, you're the executioner. You're the one who killed our parents, and you're the one who personally killed me. You're the one who let the wolf in through the door. You're the one who covered for her. You're the one who handed her the knife and let her succeed. You know what? Even if in a past life, after you lived to 100 and they nailed the final judgment on your coffin, your tombstone was carved with a lifetime of glory, in my eyes, you belong in the deepest pit of hell. I turned and walked away, his heart-wrenching sobs echoing behind me, but I didn't look back, because this time, I wasn't going to be the one to soften. It's their turn to pay with their lives. Serafina was reported. The accusation was intentional poisoning and murder of family members. I didn't come forward personally, just anonymously submitted some evidence. 10. As they were taking her away for questioning, she was still screaming hysterically, it's because I love him. I loved my brother too much. In this life, she's headed for prison. In my past life, I gave up everything for the sake of family, because of my parents' dying wish. Penelope, your brother has poor judgment when it comes to people. With Mom and Dad gone, will you promise to look after him for us? I kept that promise. I devoted my entire life to their son, staying by his side until his final breath. But this time around, things are different. This time, I was finally no longer his accessory, no longer just a tool at his disposal. I rejected his apology and compensation, and refused every request from Ethan to see me. I just sneered, enough with the redemption act, get out of the pilot corps. He showed up at my doorstep, kneeling outside the military base, begging me, Penelope, I'm sorry, I was wrong, you can hit me, yell at me, anything. Just don't cast me aside. I stood inside the doorway, my voice calm, I won't let you die. For our parents' sake, I'll give you a pass this time. If you want to atone, go kneel in the ancestral hall every single day, rain or shine. In our past life, our parents died with grievances, worrying about you until their last breath. I watched over them for a lifetime back then. Now it's your turn to take up the torch. His head hit the ground with a sickening thud, blood seeping from the wound, yet he dared not look up again. My birth parents once brought me home. Even though they never showed me much love, even though they always favored my older brother, I've repaid my debt to them for giving me life. in this lifetime, I just want to live for myself for once, for my real parents, Spencer and Lillian, for raising me and teaching me self-respect. Let me live as the Chloe that couple created, just once. I don't need to claim my ancestral roots. I owe Seraphina's family nothing now. What's more, fate has its twists and turns. Jacob was the saving grace in my past life. He still stands behind me, holding an umbrella for me, standing up for me. Who says this isn't fate? Ethan never came to see me again. As soon as Jacob heard about my transfer orders, he immediately put in for one himself. After finishing his shift with the pilot unit in Beijing, he still showed up outside my apartment building as usual, one hand tucked in his pocket, a candied hawthorn skewer dangling from his lips, waiting for me as if nothing had happened. Spotting me, he draped his jacket over my shoulders with a playful grin. Beijing's not like Guangdong, he said in a teasing tone. Temperature dropped today. Don't be stubborn. I couldn't help glancing at him. Aren't you going to ask what Ethan and I talked about? He took a bite of candied hawthorn and said leisurely, why would I? He's not someone I care about. He turned to look at me, his gaze growing more serious. I've told you before, whatever you've been through, who owes you? Who betrayed you? None of that matters, because I'll always be here to protect you. The wind was biting cold, yet his palm felt wonderfully warm. In that moment, it suddenly dawned on me, even if I had 100 lifetimes to relive, I'd still find my way to his side every time. Jacob, I whispered softly. He looked at me. I gazed into his ever-smiling eyes and said earnestly, don't you change. His little fangs peeked out with that same roguish charm I remembered. Yet it brings a sense of comfort. How would I dare change? If I did, you'd beat me to a pulp. Seraphina completely lost her mind in prison, suffering a mental breakdown. Ethan fell ill as well. Night after night, I dreamed of my childhood self being abandoned by him, left to die, torn apart by hyenas. He never married, devoting his life to caring for his parents until their last days. In the end, he renounced the world and entered monastic life, leaving Seraphina's family savings and property to me. I donated everything except the house. When Jacob and I welcomed our first child, he sent me a long letter, for Chloe's eyes only. Reading your words feels like seeing you in person. Hearing that you had a safe delivery and both you and the baby are well was an immense relief, like a heavy weight finally lifted from my heart. I know I shouldn't disturb you, but since I picked up this pen, every word has stuck in my throat like a fishbone. I must speak my mind. In this lifetime, I've lost you twice. Once, when you gave your all just to save my life, I saw you as a sinner, and once in my childhood, when I carried you out of the hospital with my own hands. I thought I was protecting our family bond. Little did I know, I was pushing my dearest one into the abyss with my own hands. Countless times in my dreams, I returned to that rainy night. At that street corner, you were curled up and crying. Hyenas circled you, yet I turned and walked away. I've pleaded with the Buddha 1,000 times, just hoping that when I wake from this dream, you'd still call me brother. But deep down, I know that's already too much to hope for, after my parents passed. I've been tending the ancestral hall without a day's neglect, burning incense, offering prayers, chanting scriptures, for you, for them, 11, and for the past life I can never return to. If there is a next life, I would rather be a pine tree at your doorstep, guarding you through all seasons, safe and sound, nor would I ask for any sibling affection anymore. I only wish for you a lifetime of peace and a life without regrets. Through 2 lifetimes of worldly dust, I remained blind in heart and sight. Now I've taken monastic vows, with dim lamps and ancient Buddhas as my constant companions. You need not come to see me, nor dare I face you again. I've saved some money, originally intended as an education fund for your child. If you won't accept it, please donate it to charity. Consider it my final payment for past karmic debts. Penelope, let me call your name one last time, in this lifetime. I'm grateful you're still alive. My greatest regret is failing to protect you. May your life be blessed with blossoms in spring, gentle breezes in summer, fruitful harvests in autumn, and crystalline snow in winter. May peace and joy accompany you, and all your aspirations come to fruition. With deepest reverence, Ethan. Inside the envelope lay a stack of money saved over many years. I told Jacob, I don't know who sent this money, let's donate all of it. He understood the unspoken words in my eyes, held my hand, and said, okay, in this lifetime, I won't look back anymore. Finally, I can live for myself. Story 2. On the eve of his coronation, my husband forced poison wine down my throat. Father Emperor, I wish to take Nora as my consort. Our 7-tailed divine fox son then stabbed me through the heart, brutally extracting my inner core. Cain's words sent shockwaves through the assembly, all because I was a lowly single-tailed fox. While the sister who came to Qingqiu with me was a legendary pure-blooded descendant with 6 glorious tails. When I looked up, Cain's gaze burned with pure contempt. My husband gazed at me coldly. I deeply regret choosing you as my fox consort. Without me, how could a wretch like you ever bear a 7-tailed divine fox? The mighty Yusa clan had perished in the God-sealing war millennia ago, becoming mere legend among fox spirits. The son I raised with such care crushed my inner core. In my past life, just as I thought I'd be rejected and prepared to return to Chuanhu, the 6th Prince Cain suddenly took my hand. Had my aunt borne me, my lineage would have been nobler. You're unworthy to be my mother. Though Cain was the only single-tailed prince of the Fox Emperor, he remained the most favored. When I opened my eyes again, I'd returned to the day of the Fox clan's consort selection. I married Cain and bore a seven-tailed divine fox named Jax, helping him ascend to the Fox Emperor's throne. My husband eagerly chose my sister as his bride, and our son was reborn as her child as he'd wished. Yet my sister Nora was discovered to be a descendant of the legendary Yozu clan, making her nobility unquestionable. They were stunned when they saw their son's true form. Cain always believed that if he and Nora were together, they'd surely conceive a celestial nine-tailed fox. Even my carefully raised Jax thought so. He believed Nora alone was worthy to be his mother. 1. The Fox Emperor was stunned upon hearing Cain's words. Never did I expect the fatal blow to come from my own son, Jax. Cain, are you absolutely certain about this? I collapsed under his scornful gaze, consumed by the searing pain in my chest. My mother is the current Snow Fox King's own sister, while Nora's mother was a renowned courtesan in the pleasure quarters. Just when I thought death had claimed me, I found myself back at the Fox tribe's consort selection day. Bloodlines matter. Everyone knows Nora was just a token offering from the royal family. In both beauty and status, Nora pales in comparison to me. Cain approached Nora, taking her hand. Imperial father, my heart has long belonged to Lady Nora. I beg your blessing. Nora looked utterly flattered upon hearing this. With Cain's selection complete, the Qingqiu consort ceremony officially concluded. Just as the Fox Emperor announced we rejected candidates could return home, Cain suddenly dropped to his knees. Imperial father, last night the royal diviner examined Lady Faye's destiny chart. It perfectly complements fifth brother's fate. The diviner said their union might cure his illness. That's when I knew he too had been reborn. Prince Eli of Qingqiu, the fifth son, was the Fox Queen's only male heir. The Fox clans are divided into 4 lineages, with Qingqiu as the most prestigious, Tushan second, while our pure Fox clan holds lower status due to fewer tails. In their past life, Nora was his destined soulmate, yet mere days after their marriage, Eli met his untimely demise. On the eve of his funeral, flames engulfed the memorial hall, claiming Nora's life in the inferno. Foxes are further ranked in 9 tiers by tail count. More tails signify greater power. Nora awoke bathed in golden light. Since the God-sealing war, no 6-tailed fox has appeared for nearly 10 millennia. The Fox Emperor, upon learning this, enshrined her as the sacred maiden of Yusu and built a mansion exclusively for her. Most of the Fox Emperor's 6 sons from Qingqiu possessed only 3 tails, at Cain's suggestion. The Fox Emperor immediately arranged the marriage between Eli and me. To remedy this, the Emperor decreed a royal matchmaking across all Fox clans, mandating each to send candidates for his son's consort selection at Qingqiu. Cain wrapped an arm around Nora's waist and flashed me a smug look. You owe me big time, Faye. If I hadn't pleaded your case, you'd be stuck in that godforsaken Pure Fox territory by now. My sister and I, born into the royal Pure Fox lineage, were sent to Qingqiu by our king upon coming of age. I cast a detached glance at Cain. Most maidens presented by the noble houses boasted 4 tails. Eli's days are numbered, and I don't have Nora's good fortune. Only my sister and I were born with single tails. Never did I imagine that after a century of marriage, Cain would harbor such deep hatred toward me. At the royal selection ceremony, the multi-tailed maidens were chosen almost immediately. You did this on purpose, Faye. Cain, whose coarse features often made him the butt of jokes, precisely why he'd chosen me in our past life, snapped bitterly. What use is beauty? The Emperor values heirs above all, and with Cain's condition, he'll never father your children. How dare you, Faye? Nora paled. Cutting me off. You defy the 6th prince. One more word and I'll have your tongue ripped out. Cain tried to speak, but Nora dragged him away. Cain's a complete idiot. All he remembers is Nora's Sioux lineage, forgetting how she's kept a harem of men since becoming the Holy Maiden. But everyone knew a single-tailed fox could never inherit the throne. Nora was always a golden fox to begin with. After he chose me, the Fox Emperor immediately approved our marriage. May Jax be reborn in Nora's womb then. I was swiftly escorted into Eli's palace. After I entered, Eli dismissed the attendants, yet both he and our fox cub looked down on me for having just 1 tail. He handed me a bundle. Miss Faye, Eli hasn't much time left. By Qingqiu's ancestral laws, you'd be buried alive with me after my death. That's unjust to you. I've made arrangements. Take these provisions and flee for your life. Rumors say the Fox Emperor cared little for Eli, though the legitimate heir. He lived worse than a servant, scraps for meals, rags for clothes. To Qingqiu's physicians, Eli's condition was terminal, with 6 tails to boot. Eli knew it too. Having agreed, I climbed onto the bed and began undressing Eli. Dear Faye, what are you doing? Eli turned pink with nervousness. Is this really necessary for treatment? Eli's physique was indeed quite frail. The father and son murdered me in an exceptionally cruel manner on the eve of their ascension. The imperial physician came the next day for the routine pulse check. asking Eli what tonic he'd taken since his vital energy showed improvement. At this thought, a sharp pain shot through my chest again, making me shudder involuntarily. Eli's ears turned red as he shook his head, claiming he hadn't taken anything. Watching this scene, my heart melted at Eli's adorable reaction. For the following fortnight, I treated Eli's condition every night. 20 days later, Eli miraculously regained the strength to leave his sickbed. While others remained oblivious to my actions, Cain and Nora knew exactly what I'd done. Cain's voice dripped with envy. "Faye, you actually wasted your clan's forbidden arts on that feeble wretch. Even if you cure Eli, he'll never surpass me, a mere single-tailed runt. How dare you?" Nora shrieked, lunging toward me in fury before Cain restrained her. "You insult my husband. Were it not for the royal decree forbidding noble bloodlines from being left unrecognized, she'd never have set foot in the palace," Cain said to me with a smug grin. "Faye, forgot to mention, Nora's pregnant." I glanced at Nora's belly. Come to think of it, in our past lives, Cain was directly crowned heir by the Fox Emperor right after I gave birth to Jax. Nora cradled her stomach and said, "Strangely enough, before the pregnancy, I dreamed of a little fox cub calling me mother, Snow White with 9 tails. He said we'd meet soon, that he'd finally been reborn in my womb this lifetime. Sister, do you think I might bear a 9-tailed fox?" Cain raised an eyebrow. "A 9-tailed fox? Faye, do you realize what this means?" Judging by Nora's description, the little fox cub she dreamed about must have been Jax. Nora misinterpreted my expression as jealousy. For that moment, Cain and Nora were the center of attention. The entire Qingqiu clan came to witness Nora's delivery. Never before respected among the pure Fox clan, being chosen by the Fox Emperor's most favored youngest son finally let her hold her head high. Even Eli dragged me along to see the legendary 9-tailed fox in her glory. She even shot me a triumphant glance. Overindulgence in tonics made Nora's litter unusually large, resulting in an exceptionally difficult birth. Eli and I stood at the very front. Then he rushed up to the stunned Cain, exclaiming, "Daddy, I've missed you so much." Cain's face darkened instantly. Before realizing what was happening, Jax turned and sighed in relief upon seeing Nora in bed. He shot Cain a pleading look, as if suddenly snapping to awareness. Cain drew his longsword and thrust at him. "Demon spawn, give me back my son this instant." Too. At the sight, Cain completely lost it, swinging his longsword at Jax once more. Jax scrambled toward Nora again, begging for her protection. Nora coldly shoved him away, yet he'd been sickly since childhood. Too weak to even leave his bed, there was nothing to do but let Cain vent his frustration. In his past life, he was the center of attention, born with 7-tailed spiritual power. Cain was no match for Jax, let alone ordinary 3-tailed foxes. Stop. My mouth moved faster than my brain. Before I realized it, I'd stepped between them. "Cain, he's your own son. Are you trying to kill him?" Cain pointed at me accusingly. This is your doing. You're jealous of Nora. You must have used some trick to strip my son of his 9 tails. Eli stepped in front of me. By Qingqiu tradition, widows must be buried with their husbands. Cain paled at the accusation and muttered defensively, "Perhaps she did it when my wife was pregnant." Eli exuded quiet authority, his arguments measured and logical. Cain stood speechless under the questioning before finally snapping in anger, just as her remains were carried out. With that, Cain thrust his sword toward Eli. Before everyone's eyes, her fur transformed from sandy yellow to golden, and 6 tails sprouted from her. But Eli was no longer the same Eli as before. He kicked Cain to the ground, planted his foot on Cain's chest with a dark expression. Even with just 1 tail, Eli outranked Cain in nobility. Legends speak of a fox spirit that, like the phoenix, can be reborn from ashes, changing its fur and growing new tails. After dealing with Cain, Eli took my hand and led me outside. Just as we reached the door, Cain sneered, "So what if you're the legitimate heir? It's just an empty title. You can only throw your weight around now. The Emperor values heirs above all. Without fox cubs of your own, you'll never rise above your station." No matter how furious Cain was, word still spread across Qingqiu that he'd boasted of siring a 9-tailed fox, only to produce a tailless runt. The ridicule left Cain too ashamed to show his face in public. Without a tail, Jax was completely ignored by Cain from the day he was born, treated worse than a servant in their household. Our pure Fox clan holds lowly status, so my fate was never mine to decide. Nora had it even worse than Jax. That very day, I donned the wedding attire. Rumor has it Cain would either set her room on fire or come at her with a sword in the dead of night. As I was being carried toward the 5th prince's palace, 2 figures blocked our path. When these reports reached me, I knew Cain was trying to force Nora's true form to emerge. Just like in their past life, I still tend to Eli's health every day, so Eli was upset because of what Cain said that day. Cain was right. The Emperor prioritizes heirs above all. He hasn't appointed a crown prince because he's yet to find a satisfactory grandson. Once a fox with 4 or more tails is born, His Majesty will surely name a successor. Eli looked puzzled. Then why haven't we conceived despite being together every day? I know exactly what he's hiding. Eli leaned over me again. He whispered in my ear, Faye, let me show you just how strong you've made me. From that day on, Eli worked hard to prove himself every single day. In the end, I'll surely be buried with him. Overjoyed, Eli spun me around in circles. Eli sent someone to inquire, only to learn that the sixth prince's residence had caught fire, and Nora was reborn from the flames. Nora repeated the same mistakes from her past life. I said calmly, they say the fifth prince, though frail, possesses celestial beauty. Marrying him would fulfill my deepest desire. For this, I thank your highness the sixth prince. Soon, word spread that Nora was a descendant of the Yusu tribe. Overnight, Cain held his head high again, just like in the previous life. The Fox Emperor appointed Nora as the sacred maiden of Yusu. I smiled faintly. Rather than concerning yourself with my husband's health, sixth prince, perhaps you should tend to your own consort. The fifth princess consumes medicine daily, hardly the picture of vitality. A grand banquet was held in the palace, and both Eli and I received invitations. In the great hall, Nora and Cain were seated right beside the Fox Emperor. Eli and I paid our respects to the Fox Emperor. Someone urged us to hurry, saying we'd miss the auspicious moment if we delayed any longer. The Fox Emperor marveled at Eli's dignified bearing and rewarded me with gold and jewels, urging us to have a child soon. Eli held my hand and said shyly, Your Majesty, Faye already carries my child in her womb. Just then, Cain spoke up, Father, I have more good news. Nora is also with child, and this time she'll surely bear a fox cub with at least 7 tails. Watching their retreating figures, I let out a scornful laugh. Overjoyed, the Fox Emperor clapped his hands and proclaimed, If Nora delivers a 7-tailed fox this time, I shall name you Crown Prince. Cain dropped to his knees in joyful surprise. Thank you, Father Emperor. I glanced at Cain, then at Nora, who looked guilty. If I'm not mistaken, Cain doesn't know about Nora taking the medicine. Since Nora took that medication, she shouldn't be able to conceive anymore. Night after night of revelry, yet never a child. Midway through the banquet, I felt a tightness in my chest. After telling Eli, I quietly excused myself. Others don't know why, but I do. Jack suddenly shouted after me, Stop right there, Faye. Don't you dare walk away. The pure fox clan possesses a secret elixir that can grow artificial tails. I can understand why Cain wants me dead. Love was never meant to last forever. Taking that medication will result in infertility. Wiping my tears with the back of my hand, I said, even if I was reborn, I'm not your mother in this life. Congratulations on becoming Nora's child, though it seems that hasn't given you the life you wanted, has it? As for the change in her fur color, meanwhile, Nora's second child was on its way, but she arrived a bit late. Nora had already given birth by then. Cain stood at the doorway, holding up a 9-tailed fox cub. She'd been wanting to change her status, so she'd been taking the pills even before coming here. Cain carefully handed the fox kit to the fox deity. Even if I stop the medication now, the fox kits will still be born deformed. Indeed, Lord Fox, Cain said proudly, pointing at the kit's tail. See, 9 tails in total, not one more nor less. Thinking of the fox kits, Cain refused to believe it. How could this be, Lord Fox? Are you seeing this wrong? Jax's face flashed through my mind and vanished. Staring at the single-tailed fox, Cain was utterly dumbfounded. I remembered the child I'd raised with such care now pointing a blade at me. This can't be right. Something must be wrong. My wife is descended from the Yoshi clan, a 6-tailed vixen. Our eldest is a 9-tailed fox. How could this child have just 1 tail? Her beautiful face was contorted with resentment. The fox god pondered for a moment. A Sioux clan member, he said, bring me your wife and eldest son. A 1-tailed fox like you doesn't deserve to be my mother. Only an ant with 6 tails is worthy. You stole father from her, that's why I only have 7 tails, you wicked woman. At the fox god's command, people immediately went to fetch Nora and Jax. I closed my eyes, seeing the fox god and the fox cub now reduced to a single tail. Nora knew she couldn't hide the truth any longer, since those two were so desperate to breed fox cubs. Cain's expression grew increasingly grim upon hearing these words. Before Nora could speak, a woman rushed out from the crowd and dashed toward the fox cub cradled in the fox deity's arms. Upon questioning, it was revealed that the child had actually been stolen by Nora. 3. After uncovering the whole truth, the Fox Emperor immediately ordered Nora to be seized and thrown into the celestial dungeon. Panicking, Nora dropped to her knees and begged for mercy. Yet everyone knew that no matter how much the Fox Emperor favored his son Cain, he still upheld the laws of Qingqiu. He reclined on the bed, his beauty as legendary as the tales foretold. If she truly believed Cain meant to kill her, presenting evidence to the Fox Emperor would guarantee his intervention. Nora's actions were simply a mother's attempt to rise through her son's status. Nora was taken away. Watching Cain and Jax lose their minds filled me with savage satisfaction. Just as I was about to leave with Eli, Cain's voice called out to me. I unwrapped the bundle to find it filled entirely with gold. Faye. I turned to see him approaching. Eli instinctively shielded me as Cain jabbed a finger in my face, snarling, "You knew all along, didn't you? This was deliberate. You're the reason we've been reduced to this." Cain completely unraveled. "You're from the pure Fox clan, and Nora's your sister. You knew she was taking those drugs and said nothing, just wanted to watch us get played for fools." Isn't that right? Cain has completely lost it. This much gold, it must be his entire life savings. Had Cain never possessed his past life's memories, had Jax never been a seven-tailed fox, these truths wouldn't have affected them at all. I'd already planned my escape route on the way here, with the Fox deity watching. The Fox Emperor naturally wouldn't let Cain cause a scene here, but his sincere gaze made me hesitate. He sent attendants to drag Cain away. I set the bundle aside. Cain laughed for tears, gripping his arm firmly. I asked, "Fifth Prince, will you let me save you? Faye, what difference does it make if you don't tell us? Do you really think you're destined for greatness? Could you possibly birth a seven-tailed fox without me? Face it, you'd never succeed alone. Many hold misconceptions about our pure fox clan." Eli cried out anxiously. "Faye, what's wrong? They assume fewer tails mean weaker spiritual power? Forcing us to rely on seduction to drain human essence for cultivation." Eli tried to carry me into the house. Little do they know our clan excels in healing arts, with secret techniques and remedies as numerous as stars. After what happened with Nora, no one present believed anymore. Cain got worked up again and rushed over, trying to snatch the fox cub from my arms. I'm a golden nine-tailed fox, serving as an attendant under the ancient fox spirit Daji of Yusu, but to us pure foxes, his condition is still treatable. Cain and Jax both tumbled to the ground together. Nobody wants to die. Just then, Cain lunged at me with his sword. Before he could strike, Eli's blade pierced straight through his chest. Cain died with his eyes wide open. After a brief pause, he smiled and said, "Then I'll leave it to your expertise. Doctor, I can't leave Eli now, and the little fox kit needs me too." Nora was swiftly executed. Eli was crowned as the crown prince. At first he remained composed as I stripped off his shirt. After securing my consent, Eli drove Jax out, but when I started removing my own clothes, he blushed. Without looking up, I said, "Healing. This is how we Arctic foxes practice medicine," which led many foxes to misunderstand us as promiscuous. So despite the Arctic fox's potent arts, we can only heal our beloveds. I stripped down to just a belly band and pinned them down. Absolutely. After just one round, he'd already collapsed onto the bed. At first, he couldn't even last a single session, but he gradually improved, managing 2 sessions with me. Everyone praised this marriage alliance, never expecting it would actually keep the 5th prince alive. One afternoon, the pair came to see me. I shot him a cold glance. "If I recall correctly, you've only got one tail yourself. My husband is handsome and scholarly. How could you possibly compare to him? No wonder he's so desperate to have children this lifetime." I remember Jax could speak right after I gave birth to him. To take care of him, I breastfed him myself, played and learned with him. There was a time when Jax clashed with the wolf clan. I nearly died saving his life, yet in the end, he had the nerve to say I embarrassed him. All he ever wanted was a mother of noble blood. Seems he's getting his wish. This time, he'll be reborn as his sister's child. I scoffed coldly. "Congratulations to the 6th prince then," in high spirits. She let out 2 loud laughs before departing. Before long, news of the 5th princess's 9-tailed fox pregnancy spread throughout Qingqiu. Even the Fox Emperor got wind of it. He specifically dispatched the royal sorcerer to investigate. The sorcerer returned and reported it truly resembled a fox cub with 7 or more tails. Overjoyed, the Fox Emperor sent lavish gifts their way. Her cries echoed through the entire palace. After a full day and night, the fox cub finally poked its head out. Just one glance at its head was enough. This little fox was definitely Jax. Soon, the entire fox body emerged completely. Everyone froze at the sight of the tiny fox cub before them. The little fox cub stood up on its own, took a couple of steps, and then spoke. "I'm finally out." But soon he realized something was amiss. He glared at us and demanded, "What's wrong with you? How dare you remain standing before a celestial 9-tailed fox like me?" Celestial 9-tailed fox. The Fox Emperor was the first to react, his face darkening with disdain. What an absurd joke. With that, he turned on his heel and stormed off. Everyone followed along. Jax was hopping around in agitation. "Why are you leaving? Why aren't you kneeling?" He remembered how everyone had greeted his 7 tails with reverence when he was born from my womb. Even the mighty Fox Emperor knelt before him. Why is this time different? Soon, he would learn the answer. There was a mirror behind Jax. He turned and saw himself in the mirror, instantly dumbstruck, for the fox's fur reflected in the bronze mirror was an ugly blackish brown, not just unsightly but coarse to the touch. One ear drooped limply while the other was missing half its length. The fox's face was equally hideous, wrinkled and shriveled like an old man's. The most shocking part was that this fox had no tail. Jack saw his true form clearly and let out a piercing shriek. How could this be? How did I end up like this? Jax instinctively raised his arms in defense. Whether a seven-tailed fox or single-tailed, all fox spirits possess some innate spiritual power from birth, yet at this moment, Jax couldn't muster even a trace of spiritual energy. The long sword slashed across his face, leaving a gash. Jax scrambled around the room in panic before instinctively ducking behind me. "Mom, save me." He gazed at me with longing eyes, expecting me to shield him beneath me just like I protected him in our past life. But without a second thought, I shoved him away. "Little fox, you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not your mother. You're not my son. My son should be a nine-tailed fox, yet you don't even have a single tail." Jax had nowhere to go and no spiritual power left. Beaten to a bloody pulp, he lay writhing on the ground with agonized howls. "Papa, it's me, Jax. Please stop. It hurts so much." His cries were heart-wrenching. When has he ever been treated like this? Beaten half to death. Jax stared at me with glistening eyes. "Mother, save me." That look reminded me of his childhood self, making my heart clench. Jax's expression shifted from moved to furious. "You wicked woman, resorting to such despicable methods. You ruined my past life, and now you're trying to destroy this one too." Seeing the father and son duo pointing fingers at me, I felt transported back to my previous life. My heart ached unbearably. Only then did I realize how foolish it was to have stepped forward. Caught between their aggressive confrontation, I turned pale and trembled uncontrollably. Just then, a gentle hand steadied my shoulder. "When my sixth sister-in-law gave birth, the entire clan witnessed it. Explain how my wife supposedly manipulated the child in her womb from having 9 tails to being tailless." I looked up at him. His usually gentle face was now filled with anger, and freed from illness, he appeared unexpectedly formidable. My heart gradually settled. The surrounding onlookers finally snapped out of their daze. Exactly. Everyone witnessed the 6th princess consort's childbirth. The 5th princess consort just stood there without moving a muscle. How could she possibly have done anything malicious? Has the 6th prince lost his mind from shock? 2 single-tailed foxes could never produce a 9-tailed celestial fox. This is pure fantasy. When the 6th princess consort was pregnant, my wife was constantly attending to my health in my own palace. When would she have had time to visit your quarters? Who the hell do you think you are, speaking to me like that? Clearly your illness has addled your mind. Today I'll make you see the truth of your situation. With just a flick of 2 fingers, he shattered the sword in half. "My father is the current Fox Emperor, my mother the Fox Empress. Why don't you ask His Majesty what exactly I am?" It suddenly dawned on everyone that the Fox Emperor still hadn't named a crown prince. By tradition, the legitimate heir holds higher status than those born of concubines. 5. It became the favorite gossip topic among the Fox clans during their leisure hours. I feel absolutely no sympathy for those two's predicament. His complexion keeps improving and his strength keeps growing. In bed, he's transformed from passive to dominant, going at it 5 times a night. This is making my back ache a bit. I was just about to talk to him about being more moderate in the future, then I heard him sighing behind my back. I asked him what was wrong. He sighed deeply. "My poor health prevents me from giving you children. In Fox society, those without offspring hold low status. You suffer needlessly by staying with me." His words moved me deeply. So this was his true concern, and he'd taken all the blame upon himself. I held his hand reassuringly. "Who said you can't have children?" My face flushed. "There's something I never told you. We celestial foxes can consciously decide whether to conceive. I chose not to before because I wanted you to regain your strength first." The words barely left my lips. I lost count of how many times we went at it that night. All I remember is blacking out in the end, and being too weak to even get out of bed the next morning. 6 months later, the royal physician confirmed my pregnancy. Just then, a tremendous boom echoed from the east. Rushing outside, I saw the sky illuminated by flames, the streets in complete chaos. Her fur color mutated abruptly, and 6 tails sprouted from her body. In that instant, everything became clear to me. The rumor took on mythical proportions. The Fox Emperor chuckled. "Splendid, with so few descendants in your generation. I'm relieved to see you continuing our lineage." "Then where did the baby in her womb come from?" 6. Just as I reached the back garden, I saw a little beggar fighting stray dogs for food. The little beggar yelped as the dog bit him. I shooed the stray away, only to realize the beggar was Jax when he looked up. Damn rotten luck. The moment I saw that face, I turned on my heel and left. I pretended not to hear, until that heart-wrenching scream pierced through. "Mom, save me." My body instinctively turned toward those pitch-black eyes. Jax crossed his arms. "So you've reincarnated too, Mother. Long time no see." I gritted my teeth. "You've mistaken me for someone else. I'm not your mother. Stop pretending. That look in your eyes hasn't changed." Jax saw right through me with his usual sharpness, a triumphant smirk playing on his lips. "Loving me is your instinct. Why else would you come back?" Those words only deepened my sorrow. I remembered the fatal stab he delivered to my chest in our past life. After Rebirth, I kept having nightmares of Jax killing me over and over. But why did Jax kill me? Was it really just because he despised my tail? I even wondered if I'd failed somewhere as a mother, if I hadn't done enough. Turns out I was wrong. Jax knew all along. He knew how deeply I loved him, knew my love for him had become instinct. Yet he killed me anyway, though my heart had died countless times. Tears still fell beyond my control. The fox cub grew quickly, and within half a year, he had already taken on the appearance of a 4-year-old human child. However, the Jax before me was scrawny and small, with dark, rough skin. His clothes were tattered, and though he was too embarrassed to eat the bun he'd snatched from a dog right in front of me, he still clutched it tightly, unwilling to let it go. Jax's face paled. So what? My mother now is a 6-tailed fox, the pure fox saintess. She promised I'd grow 9 tails soon, and then I'll be revered by thousands just like in my past life. She loves me way more than you ever did. Well, I hope you get what you want. I turned and walked away. Then I heard Jack shout after me. Heard you're pregnant. My advice, don't bother. You could never produce a child more exceptional than me. A single tail would be downright pathetic. Tail or no tail, I'll be proud of my child. Though I do regret ever giving birth to you in my past life. I didn't look back to see Jax's reaction. Given his temperament, he must be absolutely livid. Just as Jax predicted, 6 months later he evolved into a 9-tailed fox. This time not only the citizens of Qingqiu attended, but the Fox Emperor also invited other beast lords. The fox deity heard of this event and descended to witness the celestial 9-tailed fox's magnificence. Crowds inside and outside knelt in reverence across the entire ground. The fox deity had just arrived when she heard the crowd welcoming the 9-tailed celestial fox. Overjoyed, she rushed forward. Where's the celestial fox? Show me now. She took one glance and her face darkened instantly. This is what you call the 9-tailed celestial fox. 7. What others couldn't discern. The fox god spotted instantly. 9 tails. These are fakes. This kid clearly has only one real tail. A heavy silence fell over the crowd for several seconds. The fox emperor chimed in. Indeed, fox deity, these are clearly 9 genuine tails. Hearing the doubt in their voices, the fox deity grew furious. With a single tap of her finger on the fox cub, it instantly transformed before everyone's eyes into a small fox with just one tail. The two were quickly brought forward. She dropped to her knees, pleading frantically, "Spare me, great fox spirit, have mercy." She confessed to taking tail-lengthening pills herself, and admitted she'd also drugged both Jax and the fox cub. Still in disbelief, he muttered, "Impossible. If your tail grew from pure Fox Clan elixir, how could you possibly bear me a second child? My baby, that's my child." While using alchemical means to grow a fake tail might be a minor offense under Qingqiu law, trafficking fox cubs warrants execution by dismemberment. Fox Emperor, please spare me. Your son forced me into this, constantly pressuring me to bear children, threatening to kill me, saying he'd make me undergo nirvanic rebirth. I had no choice. I beg for mercy. I'll never dare again. Little did she expect that the fox deity would see through all her tricks at a glance. The fox deity turned his gaze to Jax. "Child, I'll restore you to your original form now, but that potion you took has side effects. You might never grow up for the rest of your life." Jack shook his head immediately upon hearing the fox deity's words. "No, I'm different from them. I'm a real 9-tailed fox. No potions. This is my actual tail." He looked completely deranged, yet the fox deity still tapped his forehead. Jax reverted to that pitiful little fox, tailless, one-eared, and downright unsightly. Now the whole truth has come to light. This farce has completely tarnished the Fox clan's reputation. 8. But of everyone present, perhaps only I could truly understand the turmoil in his heart at that moment, but they did remember, and they'd thrown away their golden future with their own hands. The moment he finished speaking, a sudden pain shot through my abdomen, and I slowly lowered myself to the ground. The midwife saw the amniotic fluid on the ground and shouted, "Clear the way, the 5th Imperial Consort is going into labor." But I gave birth far too quickly, before he could even touch me. I felt a sharp pain in my lower abdomen. The midwife caught the fox cub. Seeing the tiny fox tail in her hands, she dropped to her knees in terror. "That's a 9-tailed celestial fox. A 9-tailed fox? You're kidding, right? The 5th Imperial Consort is also from the pure Fox clan. Could she have taken the elixir too?" Those people quickly shut their mouths. Just then a guard rushed in, reporting celestial omens with hundreds of birds singing in unison. The fox god took my fluffy fox cub and exclaimed in astonishment, "It truly is a 9-tailed celestial fox." The room fell silent for several seconds. The fox emperor came to his senses and proclaimed, "All hail the 9-tailed celestial fox! All hail the 9-tailed celestial fox!" The crowd immediately dropped to their knees once more. My little fox cub soared into the sky, radiating brilliant light. The fox spirit declared, Receive this blessing swiftly. It's the celestial fox's divine favor upon you. The celestial fox descends, showering all creation with blessings. Mount Qingqiu became bathed in a radiant golden light. Those who suffered found their pain lifted. I stared blankly at the scene, struck by an inexplicable sense of familiarity. After what felt like an eternity, the glow around my fox cub gradually faded. He returned to my side, shifting seamlessly into human form after a brief doze. He drifted into deep slumber. The onlookers finally dared to stand up and approach to witness the divine grace of the nine-tailed celestial fox. Impossible. How could this be? There's no way you could birth a nine-tailed fox. You must have taken some elixir too. The moment he approached, the cub's immense spiritual energy sent him flying backward. The fox deity shot him a glance. With me here, the truth reveals itself at first sight. Jack stepped forward. They both have single tails. How could they possibly birth a nine-tailed fox? They must have stolen it. Hearing his words, the fox deity turned and studied me intently. A moment later, she clapped her hands in excitement, just as I thought. No sooner had she spoken than she tapped my forehead lightly. In an instant, tens of thousands of images flooded my mind. I couldn't bear these memories and took a few steps back. When I opened my eyes again, my entire aura had changed. I smiled at the fox god and said, "Long time no see." Tears filled the fox god's eyes. "You really didn't die. Just now, I remembered everything. During the Fengshan War, I lost 8 of my tails while saving someone. I reincarnated into the pure fox clan. No wonder the light of the nine-tailed fox seemed familiar to me. It was exactly like how I was when I was little, and the fox deity is another mate of Daji. And we two are friends." After hearing my story, they always thought I was of low status. Not knowing that my status is comparable to the fox god, Jack's having 7 tails is also because of my spiritual power. Their choice in the previous life was correct, but because of those fame and fortune, they lost everything. Everyone knelt before me once again. If not in this life, then I will come again in the next. Even the fox emperor, who loved him the most, merely sighed. The fox god asked me if I wanted to leave with her, and I refused. Soon the Fox Emperor passed the throne to him and went on a journey. From the day I gave birth to the nine-tailed celestial fox, Jack started calling me mother. He knelt at my doorstep for 3 days and 3 nights, saying he was wrong and that he remembered the kindness I showed him in our past life. He even tried to regain my affection by hurting himself. What a pity. The love I had for him has long been exhausted. He was a fox without a tail and had no spiritual power. Life outside was very difficult for him. Not long after, news of his death spread. When I heard the news, the little fox cub in my arms rolled over, murmured softly, "Mom, I love you." Story 2. My best friend had her eye on my ancestral jade pendant. In my previous life, my boyfriend pretended to be generous and asked me to lend the jade pendant to my best friend to wear for a few days. I reluctantly agreed out of face. However, I didn't expect that the apocalypse would follow closely. Relying on the space within the jade pendant, my best friend stockpiled a large amount of supplies in advance, but she didn't tell anyone. She even instigated my boyfriend to sell me to the fat nerd downstairs in exchange for 2 boxes of instant noodles. After being reborn, I looked at my best friend who came to borrow the jade pendant and couldn't help but sneer in my heart. Is she using the same trick again? Could it be that she thought she was the only one who could be reborn? In front of the apartment door, my best friend was clasping her hands together, looking at me pitifully. "Ella, don't you have an ancestral jade pendant? Could you lend it to me to wear for a couple of days?" Zoe was already good-looking and pure in appearance, and now she was acting coquettish and weak, which made it really hard to refuse. I stood there dumbfounded for a while before realizing I had been reborn. And I was reborn at the moment when the space jade pendant was about to be tricked away. In my previous life, when the apocalypse came, the zombie virus swept across the globe. Thanks to the space in the jade pendant, Zoe stockpiled a large amount of supplies in advance, but she didn't tell anyone and just used it secretly by herself. Once, I clearly saw her licking an ice cream when I walked closer. She looked at me innocently. "Ella, are you so hungry that you're hallucinating? Where is there any ice cream here?" I didn't believe it. The sweet smell was still lingering in the air. Later, when the supplies at home were used up, at Zoe's instigation, Alex sold me to the fat nerd downstairs in exchange for 2 boxes of instant noodles. I begged humbly, but she smiled smugly. "Ella, you're right. I do have a lot of supplies in hand. I have to thank the space in your jade pendant. It allowed me to stockpile enough food to last for several years." Phew. I took a deep breath and tried my best to stay calm. Even though I had been reborn, when I recalled the pain of being torn apart by zombies in the end, I couldn't help but tremble all over, and all of this was thanks to Zoe. Before I could say anything, an impatient male voice came out. "It's just a jade pendant. What's the big deal about lending it to Zoe for a few days? Don't be so stingy." Inside the apartment, Alex was sitting upright, and his disapproving gaze shot at me like 2 sharp arrows. He had always been used to standing on the moral high ground and accusing others. In my previous life, if it hadn't been for him taking the lead and PUAing me, even though Zoe was my best friend, I wouldn't have lent out such an important thing as my ancestral jade pendant, thinking that I had wasted so many years on such a scumbag. I sneered. Last time when I went to your house, didn't your mother wear a bracelet worth over 100,000 yuan? You're so helpful. Why don't you persuade your mother to lend the bracelet to Zoe for a few days? Alex was choked and stunned for a moment, and his face couldn't hold back. What nonsense are you talking about? My mother doesn't even know Zoe well. Now you know they're not familiar. Why were you so generous when persuading others to be generous just now? I lowered my eyes, hiding the coldness in my eyes. It was my own stupidity in my last life. I couldn't blame others, but in this life, they could forget about coveting my space, seeing that I wouldn't budge. The pitiful expression on Zoe's face quickly disappeared. She smoothed the loose hair beside her ears and said in a tone as if she was easy to negotiate with, Ella, I really like that jade pendant. Well, how about this? You set a price, and I'll buy it. Is that okay? Hearing this, my eyes flickered. Stockpiling supplies needed money. I had just graduated, and I only had a few thousand yuan in my card at most. With a fat sheep like Zoe coming to my door, it would be a waste not to take advantage of it. Sure, a fixed price, 100,000 yuan. Before Zoe could say anything, Alex got unhappy first. 100,000 yuan, why don't you just rob people? The jade pendant itself might not be worth 100,000 yuan, I explained slowly, but it's a family heirloom. For me, it has extraordinary significance, far beyond what 100,000 yuan can compare to. Alex wanted to argue further, but Zoe stopped him. I agree. She walked to the corner and made a few phone calls. Soon, she managed to scrape together 100,000 yuan and scanned the QR code to pay me. Of course, I also took out the jade pendant. However, the surface of the jade pendant was dull, and it looked even worse than the fake ones that cost a few yuan on the street stalls. A hint of hesitation flashed in Zoe's eyes, and she tentatively asked, Ella, are you sure this is the ancestral jade pendant you mentioned? Yes, I nodded affirmatively, afraid that I might take out a fake jade pendant to deceive people. Alex quickly lowered his head to examine it carefully. Unfortunately, the jade pendant was real, but the space inside it had already been bound to me when I just went back to my room to get the pendant. In other words, apart from its decorative function, this jade pendant had no other uses. Yes, it's this one. There's a small notch on the jade pendant. I saw it last time when she took it out, Alex said in a very certain tone. Hearing this, as if afraid that I would regret it, Zoe quickly put the jade pendant away. After the two of them left, I closed the door and began to familiarize myself with how to use the space. The structure of the space was simple. It was a sphere with a radius of 50 meters, besides having the storage function. Time inside it stopped. Whatever was put in would remain the same when taken out. It was October 11th, 2353, a little after 7 in the morning. In my previous life, the zombie virus broke out at 5 in the afternoon on this day. That meant I still had over 10 hours to prepare. Thinking of this, I quickly took out my phone. Dad, Mom, go to the town and stockpile supplies as much as you can. My dad shouted loudly. What's going on? We haven't heard any rumors about a lockdown. What's the matter? I quickly told him to keep his voice down. In the apocalypse, people's hearts were unpredictable. If we were targeted because of this, it wouldn't be worth it. Let's not talk about it for now. Anyway, go stockpile supplies first. Remember to be careful and don't let acquaintances find out. After the call ended, I directly ordered hundreds of breakfasts on my phone. Under normal circumstances, the food in breakfast shops was prepared in advance, and it only needed to be packed. After putting the breakfasts into the space, I drove to an outdoor goods store in the city. On the way, I also rented several cars by the way, box trucks, camper vans, SUVs, almost all the vehicle models that might be needed after the apocalypse were rented. Of course, the rent wasn't cheap. Fortunately, I only needed to pay the rent for the first 2 days. When I arrived at the store, I directly handed the boss a shopping list. Windproof lighters, 20 boxes, with 50 lighters in each box. Anthracite coal, 100 boxes, warm patches, 10 boxes, cassette stoves and the corresponding canned gas, 20 boxes, alcohol blocks, 10 boxes, 2 small solar panels for charging mobile phones, 20 USB flash drives that could be used for both mobile phones and computers, each with a memory of 256 GB, 1 silent generator, and 5 boxes of the corresponding diesel, flashlights, 10 pieces, large capacity power banks, 20 pieces, 5 sets each of tents and sleeping bags that could be used for keeping warm. Under the boss's recommendation, I also bought a set of outdoor equipment collections, which included infrared telescopes, axes, ropes, compasses, locators, walkie-talkies, and other outdoor equipment. Later, after my repeated pleadings, the boss secretly sold me his collection of tang swords and mechanical crossbows, including the matching crossbow arrows. It cost me over 90,000 yuan in total. I scanned the QR code with a bit of heartache after paying this amount. There was only 6,000 yuan left in my phone's deposit. At 10 in the morning, there were still 7 hours left until the apocalypse arrived. Wearing a mask, I walked quickly into the largest warehouse supermarket in the city. Following the signs, I first rushed into the beverage section. My fingers seemed to casually slide across the mineral water bottles, and the height of the mountain-like pile of mineral water was directly reduced by half a meter. I closed my eyes and sensed it. Not many, just a few hundred boxes. Next, I did the same thing in the snack section, fruit section, fresh food section, grain and oil section, seasoning section, and daily necessities section. After walking around the 30,000 square meter warehouse supermarket, my feet hurt. But I didn't expect to run into Zoe and Alex here. As soon as he saw me, Alex rushed over and started scolding me harshly. "Ella, what's happened to you? We've already had someone specially appraise it. The market price of your jade pendant is at most a few hundred yuan." "Ella, don't blame Alex. He's just afraid that you'll go astray and deceive people with a fake jade pendant. That's why he's angry," Zoe said, and carefully observed the expression on my face, but she was doomed to be disappointed. I opened my eyes wide innocently and looked at her with a puzzled expression. What fake jade pendant? The one I gave you is real. Didn't Alex confirm it at that time? Could it be that you regret it now and are trying to bite me back by saying the pendant is fake?" The expression on Zoe's face froze. Even Alex looked at her suspiciously. I forced a smile and took a few steps back, directly shaking off her hand. "I regarded you as my best friend. That's why I gave up my ancestral jade pendant. If you regret it, you can just say so directly. There's no need to slander me." I pretended to take out my phone as if I was going to return the money. Zoe quickly pressed my hand. "Ella, I was just joking. Don't mind it." Looking at the uncomfortable expression on her face, I knew I had won the bet. Actually, if she had waited for a few more seconds, she would have seen the prompt of insufficient balance. But she didn't dare to bet, and she didn't dare to return the jade pendant to me either. Zoe insisted on following me to the supermarket entrance. I knew what she was planning. She just wanted to see if I had stockpiled a large amount of supplies. Unfortunately, it wasn't time to break our relationship yet. In front of them, I directly opened the trunk. When she saw that there were only half a box of mineral water and some fruits and vegetables I had just bought in the large trunk, Zoe secretly breathed a sigh of relief and dispelled the doubts in her eyes. She was just about to say something when a staff member not far away suddenly waved his hand and shouted at the top of his lungs, "Miss, the goods you ordered are ready. Please come and check them." Looking at the mountain-like pile of goods, I quietly took a photo and then pretended to be surprised and asked, "So many, can you finish them all by yourself?" Zoe's face darkened. She was the kind of person who was extremely selfish otherwise. In my previous life, even though she had a lot of supplies in hand, she wouldn't have been so stingy as to not give me even a bottle of water. "Our company is going on a picnic. That's why I was sent out to purchase a batch of supplies." Zoe smoothed the loose hair beside her ears, looking innocent and natural. I had a smile on my face, but my heart grew colder. Even at this time, Zoe still didn't plan to share any news about the apocalypse with me. But it didn't matter. My friendship with her had been severed by her own hands in my previous life. All that was left was hatred. Zoe was really cautious. Although she went back herself, she left Alex behind. "Ella, it's normal for couples to have some small frictions. As long as we talk it out, it'll be okay. Coincidentally, it's a holiday today. Why don't you and Alex take this opportunity to relax?" Zoe asked tentatively, and a flash of malice passed through her eyes. Obviously, she wanted to use Alex to monitor me. Once I stockpiled supplies, I'm afraid the news would reach her in the next second. I raised my head and smiled. "Sure, I haven't eaten at a buffet for a long time." Alex frowned and was about to refuse, but he still gave in under Zoe's pleading gaze. I sneered inwardly, pretending not to see the reluctance on Alex's face, and dragged him straight to a barbecue buffet restaurant with an excellent reputation nearby. The reason I chose this place was nothing else but simply to take advantage of the buffet restaurant. Wasn't Zoe afraid that I would stockpile supplies and deliberately send Alex to monitor my actions? Then I would collect delicious food openly under his nose: freshly cut beef and mutton, half-cooked grilled squid and prawns, tender and juicy fried steaks. There were also dishes like sweet and sour pork, braised chicken in brown sauce, squirrel-shaped mandarin fish, and other delicacies from all over the country, free beverages, fruit platters with a cool breeze, and even staple foods like Yangzhou fried rice, hot dry noodles, steamed buns, and rolls were not left out. There were so many people coming and going in the buffet restaurant. Even if the restaurant noticed an abnormal amount of ingredients, it wouldn't be able to figure it out for a while. What's more, a few hours later, the zombie virus would break out. By then, who could trace it back to me? After coming out of the buffet restaurant, Alex glanced at the time on his phone. Then, as if he had completed some task, he couldn't wait to leave. Without being monitored, I quickly went to the pharmacy to stockpile a batch of commonly used medicines, and then went to the farmer's market to buy some seeds, fertilizers, and nutrient soil. It was a little after 4 in the afternoon. I calculated the time and walked into the community on time. There were still half an hour left until the apocalypse arrived. I took a deep breath and began to make the final preparations before the apocalypse. The apocalypse would soon bring a halt to water and electricity supply. Not only cold water but also hot water had to be prepared in advance. Looking at the gas fee that only had a few dozen yuan left, I decisively recharged it with 200 yuan. After that, I closed the doors and windows tightly, drew the curtains, and charged all the power banks. After everything was ready, I took out the 20 USB flash drives I had stockpiled before and started downloading various videos and materials. At 5 in the afternoon, the apocalypse arrived on time, accompanied by a shrill scream. The old lady carrying shopping bags pounced on the young man beside her nimbly and bit him. Blood quickly seeped out. The security guard on duty saw the situation and quickly ran over to help. However, the old lady, who usually couldn't even stand steadily, became extremely powerful at this time, and several young and strong men couldn't control her. Looking at the chaos outside the window, my heart that had been hanging in the air finally settled down. On the TV, the original content had disappeared and was replaced with a blue background and white words of emergency notice. Attention, all citizens. On the evening of the 11th, many places around the world were attacked by an unknown virus. According to incomplete statistics, the number of infected people worldwide has exceeded 1 million and is still on the rise. Please keep calm and wait patiently for rescue. Looking at the content that was exactly the same as in my previous life, I calmly turned off the TV and cast my gaze out of the window. In just this short while, dozens of zombies appeared in the community. Their eyes were grayish-white, and they walked unsteadily, but when they encountered prey, they became extremely fierce and would bite anyone they saw. The screams kept echoing over the entire community, and even the air was filled with the smell of blood. "Daughter, are you okay over there?" On the video, my dad's voice was trembling. "You asked us to stockpile supplies. Is it because of this?" I quickly told him, "The zombies carry the virus. If you're scratched or bitten by them, the probability of being infected is almost 100%. You guys stay at home during this period. Lock the doors and windows tightly, although there's a well at home. Don't forget to stockpile water too. Also, zombies are very sensitive to sound and smell. When you cook, remember to keep the noise down and don't turn on the lights at home to avoid being targeted by others." Finally, my voice choked up. All the grievance I had endured since being reborn burst out at this moment. How I wished I could be by their side at this very moment. Unfortunately, I was reborn too late. For the future livelihood of our family, I could only stockpile supplies first and look for an opportunity to go back later. "Dad, Mom, from now on, don't trust anyone and don't care about anyone. I'll definitely come back to find you after a while." My dad still wanted to say something, but my mom snatched the phone. "Daughter, you must take good care of yourself when you're outside alone. Your dad and I won't go anywhere. We'll wait for you at home." Given that there were still quite a few zombies wandering around the community, all the residents unanimously kept quiet. Just then, a message popped up in the chat box. "Zoe, Ella, how are you doing over there?" Even at a time like this, she still didn't forget to pry into my situation. I sneered and immediately used a small account to post a thread on the internet. Shocking. Someone actually predicted the apocalypse in advance. I described Zoe's behavior of stocking up on a large amount of supplies today in detail from the perspective of a supermarket employee who would have thought that I just followed the trend and bought a few large bags of food and drinking water, and the apocalypse arrived that night. Now, even if I'm trapped at home, I don't have to worry. In the past, the behavior of following the trend and stocking up on supplies would surely be criticized by netizens as being brainless, but it was different now. Because the apocalypse had truly arrived, to increase the authenticity of the post, I also uploaded a photo. It was exactly the photo of Zoe directing the supermarket staff to load supplies onto the pickup truck. After the post was sent out, it quickly sparked a heated discussion. Some people envied Zoe for stocking up on a large amount of supplies in advance, but more people started to dig up Zoe's personal information. After doing all this, I directly logged out of the small account. I no longer replied to the private messages from netizens. I admitted my own bit of mischief. I believed that it wouldn't be long before someone would follow the clues on the internet and find Zoe. By then, could she still hold on to those supplies? After doing all this, I turned off my phone and sank into the soft quilt. At night, the number of zombies surrounding the community grew increasingly large, and all kinds of howls rang out almost throughout the night. Just listening to those heartrending screams was enough to imagine the despair of the community residents. I put on my headphones and tried my best not to listen to the sounds outside. With the experience of my previous life, I knew very well, the most terrifying thing in the apocalypse was not the zombies, but the human heart. To survive the apocalypse smoothly, the first thing to discard was one's own cheap sympathy. When it was just getting light, Sporadic gunshots suddenly came from outside the community. I quickly got up from the bed, but only saw the backs of the rescue team being chased by a horde of zombies. On the second day of the apocalypse, the city was almost completely occupied, smoke was billowing everywhere, and some areas had already begun to experience water and power outages. I washed my face with cold water, and my mind instantly became clear. Breakfast was steaming shrimp porridge. Large chunks of shrimp and diced vegetables were poured into the porridge, making it nutritious and delicious. After breakfast, I leaned against the sofa and continued to popularize knowledge about zombies to my parents. Finally, I emphasized it again: never be a bleeding heart, because in the apocalypse, the human heart was the most vulnerable to temptation. Even a friend who was smiling at you one second might stab you in the back without hesitation the next second, for several consecutive days. I was sorting out the supplies in the space. Although there was a lot of food in the space, most of it was uncooked. To avoid the inconvenience of cooking in case of future water and power outages, I almost cooked all the delicious food I could think of: washed and cut fruit platters, purple rice balls of various flavors, fried chicken chops and popcorn chicken that were golden and crispy. I even made 200 servings of different flavored rice bowls that day. I was washing pig intestines vigorously when I suddenly heard a heartrending cry from the balcony opposite. "Damn you, Mr. Son, you bastard. If you dare to use the food at home to help that bitch upstairs, believe it or not, I'll jump off the balcony with your son." I poked my head out and glanced from the balcony. The child was only 4 or 5 years old, clutching the balcony railing tightly with one hand and crying loudly. Downstairs was a dense horde of zombies. But the woman was determined to drag the child, and half of her body had already leaned out over the balcony. This scene was witnessed by many people, and everyone urged the woman to calm down. Now that the apocalypse had just arrived, most people still retained their kindness and enthusiasm from before the end of the world. However, the woman seemed not to have heard them and jumped off the balcony with the child in her arms. I closed my eyes, not daring to look anymore. The further it went, the more thoroughly human nature was revealed. Hunger, fear, depression, these most direct emotions of humans, once unable to be vented, would accumulate more and more until they crushed a person. On the 10th day of the apocalypse, according to the General Household Supplies Reserve, the supplies should have been almost used up by this time. The atmosphere in the group was visibly restless. What should we do? The food in the fridge is almost gone. Didn't they say that the rescue would come soon? Why is there still no sign of it? I've run out of food at home. Whoever has extra food, I'm willing to buy it. I'll pay any price. The group was full of messages asking for help. Unfortunately, most people were just watching the fun, and few were truly willing to offer a helping hand. On the one hand, since everyone was neighbors, selling supplies at a high price at this time would inevitably be labeled as greedy for money. On the other hand, everyone knew that as long as the apocalypse didn't end, the supplies in their hands were their lifelines, and no one dared to sell their supplies to others at this time. I watched silently for a while and was just about to exit the group when I saw someone sharing a link in the group. Upon closer inspection, it was exactly the post I had originally posted on the internet. The topic was very popular, with over 100,000 likes alone. I quickly scanned it and saw that Zoe's personal information had been completely exposed. She still wanted to use the company as an excuse to fend off netizens, but was immediately exposed by her colleagues. Procuring supplies has always been the responsibility of our logistics department. When has it ever been your marketing department's job? Zoe didn't reply anymore, but the topic became more and heated. And in the latest few comments, a netizen who claimed to be Zoe's neighbor was already preparing to go to her house to borrow supplies. It was soon noon. On the dining table were packed braised pig intestines, marinated pig intestines, spicy pig intestines with green peppers, pig intestines in dry pot, and scallion-fried grilled pig intestines. Although pig intestines were delicious, they were really troublesome to handle. After working on them for 2 days, I felt like I was almost pickled myself. I was just about to take a bath when a deafening song suddenly sounded downstairs, and the direction seemed to be the opposite unit building. I quickly took out my binoculars and opened a slit in the curtain. Downstairs, the horde of zombies was rushing madly towards the opposite building. With a crack sound, the entrance door of the opposite unit building was directly smashed open, and the messages in the community group quickly reached 99+. Damn it, who threw the Bluetooth speaker downstairs? Damn it, don't let me catch whoever it is. Someone save us. The zombies have entered the building. I watched the messages in the group, feeling my heart pounding. In my previous life, it seemed that this scene had never happened. Just then, my phone vibrated. Damn it, who closed the corridor door? You come down quickly. Zoe and I are trapped in the underground garage. It was Alex. I was stunned for a moment and then quickly opened the post I had just read that morning. There had been a follow-up to the matter of borrowing supplies, just as I had guessed. Facing the neighbors' humble request, Alex and Zoe were completely unmoved. They even mocked the neighbors directly, relying on their newly installed double-layer stainless steel security door. This way, they had incurred public wrath. A dozen people directly broke into her house and frantically snatched all kinds of supplies. Zoe tried her best to stop them, but in the end, only a few packs of instant noodles were left. As for Alex, he had hidden on the balcony in fright as soon as those people broke in. I watched my phone vibrating frantically, and my eyes flickered. Alex and the other two had led all the zombies to the opposite unit building in order to enter the community smoothly. I guessed that the residents of the opposite unit building must hate them to death. Thinking of this, I anonymously sent a message in the group. Where's the property management? Hurry up and check the surveillance. It seems that outsiders just broke into the underground garage. Once the message was sent out, many people in the group at the property management to check the surveillance. After all, it was related to the safety of the entire community. This time, the property management didn't shirk. Soon, two figures with bruised faces appeared in the surveillance. Looking at the real-time images shared by the property management, the group exploded. Especially the residents of the opposite unit building. Each one of them wished they could tear the outsiders apart with their bare hands. Damn it, who is this person? He led the zombies to our side just to save his own life. Does anyone know them? They look a bit familiar. Fuck, I'm willing to offer 10 packs of instant noodles to anyone who can get rid of these two bastards. Just then, a message from a note named AAA Game Booster League popped up. AAA Game Booster, I have a way. The group suddenly fell silent. Just when everyone was doubting whether it was a prank, a drone suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The deafening song rang out again. The horde of zombies that had been besieging the opposite unit building was immediately attracted by the drone and turned around to rush towards the underground garage. The surveillance images in the group were still being updated in real time. The silver-white drone drew an arc in the air, followed by a surging horde of zombies. Alex looked at Zoe, who was pale with fright beside him, and quickly made a decision. Zoe, for my sake, just bear with it. He reached out his hand and pushed Zoe into the horde of zombies without hesitation, then turned around and ran in the opposite direction. Seeing this scene, I was silent. This was Alex. He talked about love, but when danger came, he would abandon the other person without hesitation. A dozen minutes later, my phone vibrated twice. Ella, Zoe has been eaten by the zombies. Can you forgive me now? Seeing this boastful-like message, I felt a chill run down my spine. Alex was still persistently sending messages. Ella, I really know I was wrong. After this period of time, I finally saw my true feelings and realized that the person I've always loved was you. The apocalypse doesn't know how long it will last. You're a girl, and I really can't rest assured. Let me stay by your side and protect you. How dare he say such a thing? Obviously, he was coveting other people's supplies, yet he had the nerve to claim it was protection. Did he really think everyone was stupid? I didn't bother to reply to him and directly set my phone to silent mode. 16. When I woke up, the power was out. The community was pitch black. I tried to call my family. Fortunately, the call could still get through, but the signal was intermittent, and it seemed that it wouldn't last long. We talked in low voices for a while before reluctantly hanging up. When it was daylight, the last bar of signal also disappeared. It was also at this time that the evil in human nature began to surface. In just one morning, the supermarket outside the community was visited several times. The last time, a group of people directly occupied the supermarket and locked the owner's family outside. The owner was hiding here and there with his child in his arms. After finally getting back to the car window was smashed by those people with laughter. The community was not peaceful either. The property management staff started searching for food from door to door. They didn't target the houses where there were people. If there were people at home, they would skip it and go to the next house. Surprisingly, the residents of the community didn't oppose this. Everyone thought that when the property management collected enough food, they would surely distribute it to them. Even I had such an illusion in my previous life. 1 day, 2 days, the property management didn't make any move. Someone was so hungry that they ventured to the property management office, only to find that it was already empty. After learning the truth, the residents of the community all collapsed. In other words, they not only missed the last chance to collect supplies but also watched helplessly as others took the supplies away from in front of them. I'm so stupid, really. I thought they were collecting supplies for the community residents, but I didn't expect them to be such people. I'm even stupider, seeing them sweating profusely while moving things. I even pitied them and gave them 2 bottles of drinks. On the 28th day of the apocalypse, I was leaning against the window, holding binoculars in one hand. Downstairs, an off-road vehicle was crashing left and right, finally breaking through the siege of the horde of zombies. But not everyone was as lucky as them. More people were still drowned by the surging horde of zombies before they could even leave the community. Since the official announcement of the safe zone, more and more people couldn't hold back and chose to take the remaining supplies and head for the safe zone. After all, staying in the community, there would always be a day when the supplies ran out. But if they took a gamble, There might still be a chance to survive. Lunch was sour and spicy rice noodle with pickled cabbage and pig intestines. The steaming hot rice noodle, topped with pig intestines, peanuts, and enoki mushrooms, was sour, spicy, and appetizing. After taking a sip of the hot soup, I felt comfortable all over. Just after finishing the meal, there was a knock on the door. I calmly cleaned up the dishes and chopsticks and then walked slowly over, outside the door. Alex's voice sounded a bit anxious. Ella, open the door quickly. Someone is starting to sweep the building. It'll be our floor soon. Downstairs, the zombies were crashing against the door crazily, and there was a commotion inside the building. Everything seemed to match what Alex had said. Seeing that I didn't answer, Alex's voice became even more urgent. Ella, I'm really worried about you and came to warn you. Open the door quickly. You know how crazy those people who are sweeping the building are. The security door was being pounded. Bang bang. I listened hard for a long time and finally couldn't hold back and interrupted him. Alex, have you had enough of your act? The noise outside the door paused for a moment, and then the pounding on the door became even louder. Along with this noise, a teasing laugh also sounded, still playing the handsome guy trick. In the end, it still depends on my axe. The other person pushed Alex aside and the sharp axe tip landed directly on the door handle. Boom. The force was so great that the whole door frame shook. I frowned. At this rate, this door definitely wouldn't last long. The people outside were still shouting, "Be sensible and open the door yourself. Maybe if we're happy, we'll spare your life." I calmly said, "What you're doing is illegal. Aren't you afraid I'll call the police?" Call the police. The person seemed to have heard something funny, and even the prying action stopped. Now there's no network and no signal. If you have the guts, go call the police and see if the police will come to arrest us. To tell you the truth, you're the only one still alive in this building now, apart from us too, so that's how it was." Hearing this, I slowly curled my lips. In that case, I didn't have to worry about today's incident being leaked. I placed my hand on the door handle and opened the security door. The two people outside were startled, taking advantage of their unpreparedness. I directly took out a basin of boiling sugar water from the space, then I poured it mercilessly over them. The boiling sugar water came into contact with the skin, instantly scalding large blisters. This was carefully prepared for them. Since the building sweeping started 2 days ago in the community, I had been waiting for this moment. It was just that I didn't expect Alex to come to my door. Seeing the two people rolling on the ground in pain, I curled my lips again and took out the pepper spray that had been prepared long ago from the space. Guests are welcome, and of course, they should be well entertained. I poured the whole basin of pepper spray unsparingly over them. The shrill screams rang out again, but this time, I didn't have the leisure to appreciate it. Downstairs, the howls of the zombies were getting closer. Alex and the other man seemed to realize something. They were just about to crawl into the room when they saw the security door in front of them slam shut with a bang. I didn't pay any more attention to the situation in the corridor. Although Alex was standing a bit further back when I poured the boiling sugar water, he still got a lot of scalds. What's more, this was boiling and sticky sugar water. Once it stuck to the skin, it wouldn't come off. And its power was much greater than that of hot water, even if they were lucky enough to survive. I'm afraid they wouldn't be able to cause any more trouble for others. Clang, clang. Since last night, the crashing sounds outside had never stopped. In order to get into the building, hundreds of zombies had formed a ladder, and the zombie on top was crazily crashing against the security window. Today was the 35th day of the apocalypse. The zombies began to move according to the scent of humans. The radio broadcast an official notice early in the morning, emphasizing the importance of keeping quiet. Zombies were wandering everywhere, especially the windows on the first floor were almost blocked by zombies. 2 days later, the horde of zombies began to march towards the upper floors in a mighty way. Early in the morning, I sprayed a lot of flower perfume on the window and the door. The footsteps downstairs were getting denser. I wasn't reassured and poured a bottle of flower perfume on myself. Fortunately, the zombies didn't notice this floor but went straight up. Boom, boom. The crashing sounds upstairs continued, and the whole corridor seemed to be trembling. I huddled in the narrow bathroom, not daring to breathe. The zombies had a sensitive sense of smell. As long as they smelled a little human scent, they wouldn't leave easily. I waited patiently until those heavy footsteps gradually faded away before I let out a sigh of relief. A few days later, only the howls of the zombies could be heard in the whole community. I became even more cautious than before. Without enough flesh and blood to support them, the zombies downstairs became visibly irritable. They began to hunt all kinds of living creatures crazily until they could no longer smell the scent of other living things. The community became quieter, according to my observation. There should be no more than 5 households left in the community. This was also thanks to the rain a few days ago. Someone had taken a bucket to the balcony to collect water. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that there were other survivors in the community besides me. I was lying bored by the window, numbering the zombies wandering in the community. For example, the zombie of the primary school student downstairs, probably when the virus broke out. He had just finished school and hadn't even had time to put down his school bag. So he had been carrying it for months, and that one-eyed old man, because he was fighting with other zombies for prey, had his eyeball slapped out by the other zombie. There were also zombies in rescue uniforms from time to time. The bright colors always caught people's eyes at first glance. Life without the internet was boring, but compared with those people who needed to take risks to search for supplies outside, I was undoubtedly lucky. One should know how to be content. On the 81st day of the apocalypse, snowflakes were floating in the sky. Early in the morning, I was woken up by the sounds on the balcony. At first, I thought the zombies had attacked, and I jumped out of bed in fright. But when I opened the curtain, it turned out to be a silver-gray drone. There was a small cloth bag hanging under the drone, and inside was a fairy wand and a greeting card. The greeting card was written with a few crooked words in colored pens. Happy New Year. I stood there stunned for a long time before I realized that today was New Year's Day. Seeing that the drone was about to fly away, I subconsciously shouted, "Wait!" Seeing that the drone really stopped, I quickly grabbed a handful of candies from the table, put them in a bag, and tied them to the drone. A few days ago, several households couldn't hold on any longer and took risks to leave the community. Now, besides me, the only one still in the community was 805 in Unit 2. We hadn't met each other, but we knew each other's existence. After all, I had more than once discovered that 805 used a drone to spy on the movements of my house, and I had also more than once used binoculars to peek at the actions of their house. After closing the balcony door, I rubbed my slightly frozen hands. Although the snow outside was not heavy, the air was extremely cold, the zombies were frozen stiff, and their movement speed slowed down. Looking at the faint light emitted by the fairy wand, I hesitated for a long time and finally made a decision: go home. Compared with previous years, this winter was obviously much colder. I was really worried about the situation of my parents. In addition, due to the influence of the cold air, the zombies moved slowly, and their attack power dropped significantly. It was the best time to go home, otherwise. When spring came and the flowers bloomed next year, who knew if the zombies would return to their previous state? Thinking of this, I immediately changed into thick clothes and hurried downstairs. Just as I was about to leave the community, a man as thin as a monkey sprang out. "Ella, it's really you. I thought I had mistaken someone." The man had just climbed out of the sewer, and his clothes were so dirty that their original color could hardly be seen, even from a distance. I could smell the stench on him. But he still acted as if he knew me well and came up to open the passenger door. It was only when he got closer that I reluctantly recognized his identity. "Alex." I quickly locked the car door. In such a chaotic period, Alex was still alive. I was even a bit shocked. Alex was staring at me fixedly. "That post on Instagram was yours, right? Just because you were jealous that I chose Zoe. You incited those people to rob us of our supplies, and you dared to pour boiling sugar water on people. Do you know that your actions killed a person?" Alex said, subconsciously touching the disfigured side of his face. I looked at him expressionlessly, not missing the flash of resentment in his eyes. The apocalypse could end at any time, and a hidden danger like Alex must not be left. Seeing that I didn't make any move, Alex looked at me ferociously. "What are you looking at? Aren't you afraid that I'll tell others what you did? Hurry up and open the door." The door was going to be opened. But not now. I suddenly turned the steering wheel, and Alex was caught off guard and directly knocked down to the ground. "Damn it, what are you doing? Do you even know how to drive?" Sometimes, arguing with words was the most useless thing. I lowered the car window halfway and aimed a mechanical crossbow at him. Whoosh! Without any hesitation, the crossbow bolt shot towards Alex, at a distance of less than half a meter. There was no possibility of missing. What's more, the arrowhead had been treated with zombie blood in advance. Alex didn't even have a chance to beg for mercy before he was pierced through the throat. I got out of the car and gave him a clean axe blow, completely eliminating the possibility of him turning into a zombie. Along the way, survivors kept waving, signaling the off-road vehicle to stop. "Little girl, are you going to the safe zone? Can you give me a ride?" "And me? I also want to go to the safe zone. I have a lot of designer bags." "As long as you're willing to give me a ride, you can choose any of them." Seeing that I didn't stop, those people quickly changed their expressions. "Why are young people nowadays so cold-hearted and selfish? Don't you see there are old people and children here? What's wrong with giving us a ride? It won't cost you anything. I'm not stingy with money either." I didn't even look at them and stepped on the accelerator to leave. In the apocalypse, people's hearts were unpredictable. Who knew what would happen if I stopped? By then, having my car confiscated would be a small matter, but having myself detained would be a big trouble, because I had to avoid the zombies. The journey that originally took only a dozen hours took me 2 days and 1 night. The village was much more desolate. I drove slowly on the dirt road in the village until I saw the place I had been longing for day and night. 1 step, 2 steps. I stood still in front of the familiar door. Probably because of being close to my hometown, my palms were sweating even though it was dozens of degrees below zero. Knock knock. I knocked on the door. Seeing that there was no response, I couldn't help but knock a few more times. This time, I saw a flash of flashlight light in the yard through the crack of the door. But it quickly disappeared. TSK, the old couple were quite cautious. I held back my laughter and called out in a low voice, "Mom, Dad, it's me, Ella." This time, the door was quickly opened. My mother looked at me in disbelief, then pinched my father's arm hard. "Ella is back. Am I dreaming?" My father grimaced in pain. My mother walked around me, looking me up and down, and finally concluded, "You've lost weight." So the next morning, the old hen that had been raised at home for several years ended up in my stomach. Because the place was too remote, my hometown hadn't been much affected by the zombie virus. Only a few zombies were trapped in the traps on the back mountain and still couldn't get out. Seeing that the family didn't lack anything, I didn't reveal the secret of the space. After all, my parents were old, and I didn't want them to worry because of these things. This winter was especially long. It wasn't until May of the following year that the snow began to show signs of melting. All kinds of plants, after a winter's precipitation, rushed to sprout. Vitality. I felt this word again after a long time. At the same time, good news came from the radio. The village chief called a meeting and announced publicly that the apocalypse was coming to an end. Hearing this news, everyone couldn't help but cheer. The village chief tried hard to suppress the excitement in his eyes and put on a serious look. "Tomorrow at noon, the medicine against the zombies will fall with the artificial rain. By then, everyone should stay at home and not go out to cause trouble." On the 292nd day of the apocalypse, the heavy rain fell on time. The zombies that had been lingering around the foot of the mountain seemed to have been pressed the pause button suddenly, standing stupidly in the rain, motionless. A few minutes later, the zombies suddenly started to fight each other without warning. There were broken limbs and arms everywhere. When I accidentally glanced at the scene, I almost vomited in disgust, and I didn't even have an appetite for the freshly cooked spicy mix. A few days later, a row of military trucks stopped at the foot of the mountain, and bright flags fluttered in the air. Everyone has waited long enough. The national safe zone has been built. We are ordered to come and take you to the safe zone to live temporarily. Next, a disinfection and elimination task will be carried out here to prevent the recurrence of the zombie virus. Looking at the military green figures getting off the trucks, everyone's eyes became moist. We finally waited for the dawn.